The start of Breeders' Cup Week brought about two of the biggest workouts of the two championship days of racing. Midnight Bijou, a Horse of the Year candidate, preparing as the heavy favorite for the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff. And then Mackenzie. We took a golf cart ride with trainer Bob Baffert, and in the end, he was very happy with what Mackenzie was delivering out on the main track. Today, we've got a lot of tricks here on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. A look at Matoli, one of your favorites for the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and another gorgeous, crisp autumn day from Arcadia, California. Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup starts right now. Another glorious morning in Arcadia, California. You look around and you understand why for over 80 years they have called it the Great Race Place. Out on the racetrack, a number of horses already preparing for 2 days of championship racing, November 1st and November 2nd. For the 10th time, the Breeders' Cup comes back to Santa Anita to set a record as the site that has hosted more Breeders' Cups than anyone else. Welcome to our set just off the paddock. I'm Todd Schrupp alongside Simon Bray. And Simon, you always have to be aware of what's going on around you. We were walking to the set. There was Shug McGahee standing right here by the paddock.
Yeah, we've got the influx of East Coast invaders coming in. Shug got in last night, just caught up with him and said Code of Honor is doing extremely well, very happy with him. So he was marveling at how great this place looked. He goes, this is a tremendous facility. You know, they don't get to come out very often. He doesn't come out here, but everybody starting to arrive on scene now here for the Breeders' Cup this Friday, Saturday. So there's going to be a lot of action here the next couple of days. Not so much workers, but just pure out activity.
And you can be part of that action. Tickets are still available for Friday and Saturday. Visit breederscup.com. Okay, here's what we have for you on today's show. Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, presented by TVG. Matoli is the focus of what's going out on the racetrack early on. Matoli has been here since September 30th, and he loves it here. Every morning, he has made a great impression, and you will see his final work coming up at 7:45 live. So mark that down, 7:45 here, local time, 10:45 on the East Coast. That will be our focus early on Matoli for the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Yesterday, after the morning workout sessions, they gathered in the marquee tent just next to Clocker's Corner, and they drew all 14 races for the Breeders' Cup. We're going to talk about the impact of the post position draws. A lot of talk about how post position number one in a lot of various races drew some big horses. And then we'll sit down with a longtime employee of the Daily Racing Form, Marcus Hirsch, who's going to join us on the set. We're going to talk about Horse of the Year, various Eclipse Awards within the divisions. This is one of the reasons why the Breeders' Cup was designed to essentially decide those awards. But there's a lot of scenarios, a lot of paths to Horse of the Year. The 3-year-old division has been muddled throughout the year. This is going to be a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, this discussion is going to continue, I think, right till voting deadline closes on December 31st, because we've got some great ones after the Breeders' Cup, and depending on what happens this weekend, I think they could have an impact in that discussion.
So we will have a discussion here on our set by the paddock, but a lot of the talk is going on around the racetrack. We've got full team coverage for you, 3 reporters out in the field, and we start with Joaquin Jaime.
Hey, Todd, good morning. The Breeders' Cup horses aren't the only thing that is arriving in town. We've also had some new trainers that have gotten to town as well. Just had an opportunity to bump into trainer Chad Brown and Todd Pletcher, and Chad Brown told me that he's going to have another set of horses that are going to be hitting the track for the first time later today. So stay tuned at 7:45. Chad told me that Sister Charlie, Bricks and Mortar, and Dunbar Road, who was most recently third in the Spencer Stakes. She won the Grade 1 Alabama. She'll be in the Breeders' Cup Distaff on Saturday. All 3 of those horses are going to be hitting the track, in addition to many other Chad Brown horses for the first time coming up later on in the show. Once again, that is 7:45, so we will anticipate those horses to hit the track among many others, and we can also expect to see some gate schoolers as well. We're standing right here at the starting gate, try to get a couple that are going to be schooling in the starting gate as well, in the 6 furlong chute as well. So we will keep our eye on that back here at the starting gate. Gabby, where are you to start the morning?
Joaquin, I'm actually by the Gap, and it has been busy, 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 especially with those Europeans taking to the track for the first time today. We just saw Old Persian just walk by. Wow, is that a beautiful-looking horse, and he looks like he shipped well. Of course, after the Europeans get here, or the international horses, they have to stay in quarantine for 42 hours, so we're seeing some of these horses hit the track for the first time. Fanny Logan is one of them for John Gosden. She was already out. I saw her walk back. Alnuek, I already saw that horse go out. Hey Gammon and Villa Marina, all of those horses have already hit the track and walking back to the quarantine barn right now. We also saw two horses just a few minutes ago, the Japanese horses in Full Flat and Matera Sky. Now, Matera Sky is scheduled to work tomorrow, but Full Flat is scheduled to work today and go to the paddock and do some paddock schooling too. Now, the Japanese, they usually take their time, so we could see maybe a longer type of warm-up, whether it be walking, jogging, or galloping, and then they are scheduled to put in an official 5-furlong workout for Full Flat. Again, Matera Sky plans on working tomorrow. So that's kind of the news there with the international contingent as we check in with Michelle Yu.
Thanks, Gabby. I'm just behind you on the other side of the Gap over here and trying to catch some of the connections as they run by. I bumped into Jorge Navarro as Chancelot's heading out. He's actually going to school at the gate. So, Joaquin, there's one horse that you can definitely keep your eye on. And I want to remind everybody, hashtag QA at the Cup. If you have any questions, if you want us to go see a horse that you haven't seen yet, we can be, feeding peppermints and carrots, or at least attempting to. So make sure that you guys get involved by doing that. Tweet out your questions, and we will continuously monitor our social media and get as many of those answered as possible. And of course, we'll be keeping our eyes peeled on all these horses. Actually got Stormy coming out right behind me right now, and she has been on edge every single day we've seen her. So that is kind of usual for Got Stormy, having a handler coming out with her today. And here comes War of Will. See, it's kind of like stargazing when you stand right here at the Gap. You get to see all the good horses, guys.
Look, you always have a permanently great smile there, Michelle, but you can't help but smile when you're at the Breeders' Cup, and that's going by star, 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 star. Great way to describe it. And you talked about it as well, seeing Shug McGahee here. That's not a trainer we get to see much here on the West Coast, and that's part of the magic of the Breeders' Cup. Coming to your town are the best of our sport from all over the world. We're going to have Aidan O'Brien here.
Yeah, exactly. Aidan O'Brien's going to be coming in, and John Garston only got one runner this year. Unfortunately, Nabel won't be here this year. But, it's a truly international affair, and that's why it's called the World Championships.
Okay, let's talk about what took place at the post position draw yesterday. A lot of news in various divisions. Let's start with the biggest race. It is the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic, our final Breeders' Cup race on Saturday. And McKenzie was installed as a 3-1 morning line favorite. Looking at post position draws, yes, there was kind of some big news with big horses and other races drawing the rail in other spots that maybe raised some eyebrows. I don't think there was anything in here where you go, wow, that's a terrible draw. McKenzie, I think their connections will be very happy with post position number 8. You mentioned Shug McGahee with Code of Honor. With that long run to that first turn, Code of Honor can work that out from post position number 11. And as you said, Simon, talking to Shug McGahee, who was very happy with how Code of Honor arrived here, and we got a chance to look at him earlier before he came through the paddock area.
Yeah, he was just going back after his exercise, and this is his first morning galloping. Just took the flight here from New York, so just an easy piece of exercise around the racetrack here.
And so much discussion about his last race, the Jockey Club Gold Cup, where he was placed first via disqualification. And, you look at horses who, you look back at what the year might have looked like. The Kentucky Derby, for a lot of horses, has left people wondering. But Code of Honor ended up finishing third, placed second via disqualification there. So he's been involved in a lot of stewards' decisions. But a lot of people walked away going, he might have been the best horse there. He eventually proved it, I think, in the Grade 1 Travers with that win, and then followed up with the win via DQ in the Jockey Club Gold Cup.
I think he's been one of the most consistent 3-year-olds on the calendar year here. And it's a remarkable credit to trainers Shug McGahee and John Velasquez. If you remember, if you go all the way back to the Florida Derby, and we were talking about how Sugar changed his training pattern. He was a little disappointed with him in the Mucho Macho Man. He had figured out some things that changed the training pattern and what they were doing with him, and it's resulted in some great performances. I mean, he's had a good campaign, 7 starts, 4 wins, and I think he's established himself as the most consistent 3-year-old on the year.
And obviously the connections of Maximum Security, as they watch Code of Honor do well, Phil, that bolsters their case as having the best 3-year-old in the country. Then there is Higher Power. Higher Power took the TVG Pacific Classic back on August 17th, powered away from the field, went into the Awesome again last time out at Santa Anita. And did he lose all chance at the start in that race?
Yeah, he stumbled at the start. Let's take a look at it here. We'll go back to that. He's down on the inside there and just dropped to his knees. And look at that. I mean, most horses would never recover from that or put in a decent run, and he didn't. So at least they have a legitimate excuse. He ended up finishing 3rd. And I think, with a cleaner break, he could be part of the conversation. The thing about it, Mongolian Groom out here, Higher Power out here, they're very close on form. That, Higher Power beat Mongolian Groom, the winner of this race that you're looking at in the TVG Pacific Classic. And then they flip-flopped here with the trouble. So I think these horses are very close on form. Talking about McKinsey, Higher Power, and Mongolian Groom at this distance.
Well, with Higher Power at 1.25 miles, he did prove, as you said, that he can handle that distance in the TVG Pacific Classic. He's got the big excuse last time out in the Awesome again. And John Sadler rises to the occasion on days like today, especially with the Breeders' Cup being here at Santa Anita. Prior to the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic on Saturday will be the Breeders' Cup Turf. And when you talk about Eclipse Awards and chances at Horse of the Year, Bricks and Mortar has already made his case. But if he were to win the Longines Breeders' Cup Turf against an international field like this, then he's without a doubt a finalist for Horse of the Year and maybe the horse to catch in that category overall. It's been that type of year where a horse can stay on the grass, stay in their division, and still be named Horse of the Year. And Bricks and Mortar has been remarkable. He's won every possible way you could want.
Yeah, he's come from off the pace. He's laid a little closer. He did down into the fairgrounds in New Orleans, but this was the Turf Classic back at Churchill Downs on the undercard on Derby Day. And just, look, cruising by there. An easy win. It says 3/4 of a length as the winning margin, but it could have been a lot more.
What about the division itself here in America? Has Bricks and Mortar been beating suspect horses, and is a horse like Old Persian every bit his equal?
I think so. Old Persian, he's going to get a lot of attention because of his victory last time out up at Woodbine in Northern Dancer, but I'm not so convinced that was a strong group up there. Look, he's a good horse. He won the Shima Classic on World Cup night, Old Persian, and this is his first morning out on the track here. Look at him, a big, strong individual. You can tell that he wants to go a distance of ground, and he makes a lovely appearance coming in from Europe.
Son of Dubawi out of the Singspiel mare, Indian Pedal, a homebred for Godolphin, who has been a big supporter of the Breeders' Cup program. And Old Persian gives them a big chance in the Breeders' Cup Turf, a race that Godolphin has had a lot of success in. And we heard Gabby Gaudet at the top of the show say of the horses that she's seen this morning, this one has made a big impression on her, and you can see it for yourself. Old Persian thriving in these conditions, and it seems like with each passing day for these morning sessions, it has gotten cooler and cooler, which is a very, very good thing, especially if you've been following what Southern California has had to deal with, some wildfires that are not going to affect this area. And so you wouldn't even know that's going on being here at the expansive grounds at Santa Anita, and especially with these fantastic temperatures, getting cool in the mornings and then very comfortable in the afternoons. And that'll remain true for both days of the Breeders' Cup, Friday and Saturday. Old Persian thriving.
Looks great. Yeah, he looks great. He looks like a throwback. He could be in one of those a Fred Stone oil painting or a Stubbs oil painting. I mean, he looks tremendous out there. Just gorgeous-looking individual.
Well, let's stay on the subject of artists. Anthony Van Dyck is a horse we're going to take a look at now, and he comes out of the Irish Champion Stakes back on September 14th. Finished behind Magical, who we got the news yesterday. Unfortunately, is not going to be able to make it to the Breeders' Cup, and we'll be calling it a career. But what about the class of this horse?
He's got some class. I mean, look, he was well beaten by an Enable, but that's no disgrace. Everybody was. But, I mean, if we're going on pure form lines here, Anthony Van Dyck, third in the Irish Champion. Who was second in that race? Magic Wand. That's who Bricks and Mortar beat in the Arlington Million. That's, so the form lines are there. And the British Invasion, we're talking about Epsom Derby winners in the Breeders' Cup. Golden Horn, of course, and that thrilling stretch run, finished second in the turf. High Chaparral. That was the dead heat here back in 2003 with Johar.
And one of the longest photo finishes went on
20 minutes.
20 minutes to decide that it was a tie in the end, a dead heat. Been a lot of drama in the Breeders' Cup over the years here at Santa Anita, and as they host it for a record 10th time coming up this Friday and Saturday. Look at some of the key horses within the Breeders' Cup turf, a race that obviously stands out even though it is right prior to the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. Midnight Bisou has been a standout in the Distaff division all year long. No one has beaten her, and in the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff, she was installed as the 6-5 morning line favorite. That's expected. I think in the end, maybe she could be odds on, because you go through this field, there's no one with her resume. I think the only mystery might be a 3-year-old that could step up to the occasion and run a huge race against her. But even the 3-year-old filly division has been muddled, much like the Colts.
I think she's the shortest price favorite of the 14 Breeders' Cup races.
That's a fair statement.
Yeah, there's no question. She should be the shortest price favorite. And she's looked tremendous all week. We saw her workout. And, yeah, I mean, she's 6-5, and she looks like a 6-5 shot.
And yesterday, she went a half mile in 50 4/5. Her connections were thrilled. And as you pointed out, that's a typical Steve Asmussen workout. Yep. You're not going to get anything real fast. And Midnight Bisou doesn't train that way anyway. And you look at her last effort, the Beldame, where she beat Wildcat. We'll try and take her on again. But in the Beldame, that was essentially a one-turn mile and 8, that Belmont Park. But she's accredited herself quite nicely around 2 turns. She's also accredited herself very well here at Santa Anita. 4 previous tries here with 3 wins and a second. There's not a whole lot of mystery behind Midnight Bisou. It really is going to take a situation where maybe she doesn't run her A race, so to speak, and then someone else rises up to the occasion.
Yeah, either that or she has a trouble trip, some unfortunate circumstance, traffic, because her biggest competitor this year has been Elate. She's faced her a couple of times, and she's moved on to the Classic. So with her out of the picture here, I mean, I think it just gets a lot easier.
Doesn't it say something? The fact that Elate is about 6-1 in the morning line and considered a big chance in the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic, that Midnight Bisou sitting here. I mean,
if you like Elate in the Classic, this filly's a slam dunk in the distaff. I mean,
Midnight Bisou trying to get herself in the discussion for Horse of the Year with a win in the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff. When we come back, we'll discuss what's going on in the mornings here at Santa Anita. You're watching Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, presented by TVG. Preparations continue for 2 championship days of racing. The Breeders' Cup coming up this Friday and Saturday here at Santa Anita. A look into the saddling enclosure. Anything unique about the circumstances that horses coming to town for the first time will face here with the saddling environment?
I don't think so. It's enclosed. I think that's a good thing. You always want, the horses to be enclosed, I think, rather than big wide open spaces when you're saddling. There are 2 saddling stalls at the end of that saddling area that, have an enclosed wall at the back to stop horses running backwards. But you can see, I think that's Richard Mandela's crew out there, if I'm not mistaken, or Gary Mandela, just paddock schooling some horses this morning. And you'll see that a lot. They'll walk through there before and after exercise.
Let's check in with Gabby Gaudet.
Well, guys, we just got word that Omaha Beach will be blowing out later today at 9 a.m. So something to definitely keep an eye out on. Something that Dyck Mandela usually does with his horses, but Omaha Beach, the decision being made for him to blow out later this morning at 9 a.m. So pay attention to that. Obviously, yesterday he drew post 5 in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. A good post for him. We were talking about it. Those outside draws can be problematic with that short run into the first turn. So really excited to see what Omaha Beach does later this morning.
Omaha Beach has been very busy, as we've talked about, that Dyck Mandela likes to use that training gate, and he's made a number of appearances there. School at the gate. He's also made a great appearance out on the racetrack.
Love that shot there. That's that breakfast marquee. First time we've seen that shot this week, but you get the idea of the expanse of how busy it is at Clockers Corner there.
Yeah, from 7 to 11, people can gather there, get a good breakfast, and then have a fantastic view of the workouts in the morning. That's yesterday as well, where they held the post position draw. Michelle, where are you at?
Todd, I'm right here outside of the barn of Steve Asmussen and actually standing with the assistant trainer, Scott Blasi. And as you guys have already mentioned, Matoli going to be blowing out 3/8 today as well at the 7:45. And when I heard what Gabby was saying, I had relayed that to Scott. And he's like, well, what time is that happening? I do not want him and Matoli to breeze together. So I told him 9 o'clock, and he was much better with that. Went inside to go finish getting Matoli ready. So very funny that they want to keep the race on race day and not in the morning. I feel like that's a throwback to kind of the Sunday silence and easy goer situation a couple years back. Or was it Ali Sheba and Ferdinand? Some of those Derby types had a race in the morning and didn't leave it all in the afternoon for the excitement.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, there's a number of ways to look at it. You can't always win the race in the morning, but you certainly can lose a race in the morning.
Oh, no question about it.
Yeah.
110% you can lose a race in the morning. No question about that.
We were talking about the Japanese-based horses that are here in different divisions. Full Flat will be taking a major shot in the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and this is moments ago Full Flat. And we were talking about the different styles of training from trainer to trainer here in America, and obviously around the world there's a different approach to getting a horse ready for a race. Is there a common denominator amongst Japanese trainers?
Yeah, there is. Like I said, they spend a lot of time walking. I mean, I think in our vantage point here in the paddock, one of the pair of the horses that I've seen the most this week are the 2 Japanese horses, because they walk in this paddock behind us. They walk and walk and walk, and they spend a lot of time out of the stall, which I think is a good thing. And but they won't work very quickly here, I don't think, going into the race here. We've seen, several Japanese horses over the last years come and compete here in the United States, and usually their final work very slow, just a maintenance piece of work here in Full Flat. Like, we checked in with Kate Hunter, the Japanese representative earlier this week, and she said, a lot of these horses, they all started at Keeneland. They were purchased at Keeneland. This is a son of Speightstown of a Medaglo Doro mare, so got a nice way of going. Just comes down the stretch there. It does the lead change perfectly there. And this horse got a nice low head carriage, low to the ground. It got a beautiful way of moving, and I can see why they took that chance here coming to the United States. I mean, it looks like a horse that's built for U.S. racing.
And will be the first time on the dirt, as you were talking about, for Full Flat, completing a workout moments ago here this morning at Santa Anita, and trying to pull off what would be an upset in the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile because of the big 3 that are in there: 8 Rings, Dennis's Moment, and Maxfield. A majority of independent observers believe the winner is going to come from one of those 3. And the big news coming out of the post-position draw yesterday, the connections at Dennis's Moment wanted a post-position draw near the inside. Well, they got the inside. Post-position 1 going to Dennis's Moment. And it'll be interesting to see how that affects the pace of this race, as Dennis's moment can be quick in the early stages and is probably going to have the hand forced from the inside.
If you see right here, that was moments ago. There you go. There's
Oh,
the
there
two
they are.
horses. There they are,
Behind
right there.
us.
And what I was talking about, after exercise, they'll come into the paddock. And, you know, after a workout like that, you want to see a horse that's, you know, nice, calm, relaxed, not blowing too hard. And, I mean, these horses look tremendous. They're so well behaved here. I'm very, very impressed.
And we also have our live view camera in the walking ring. Gabby Gaudet is watching that in. And, Gabby, this is a chance, you know, we've seen them from a distance on the track, but now you're seeing these Japanese-based horses up close. What are your impressions?
Well, Full Flat is just kind of a cool customer. I mean, you can see his head kind of hanging low, and he just has a nonchalant demeanor, excuse me, as we can see from him here today. But that's just his personality. I mean, I've seen even photos on Twitter for Full Flat that he's just a really cool customer back at the barn. So not a high energy type of horse. Looks like he did get a lot out of his 5 furlong workout though. And guys, the coolest thing here, Yutaki Taki is actually aboard him today. He flew in last night from Japan to work him, and of course he will be staying here to ride these two horses over Breeders' Cup weekend, and he will be working Matera Sky tomorrow. Matera Sky leads the charge. I've been really impressed with this horse, just his energy levels, the way he's maintained weight too. So I definitely think he's an interesting international flavor there, guys, Matera Sky. So everybody's in town, and Full Flat put in that 5 furlong workout with anticipation with Matera Sky's workout tomorrow too. But they look great.
Thank you, Gabby. So as the Japanese horses continue their schooling session behind us, one of the great personalities that has arrived in town and is a fantastic ambassador for horse racing all over the world is Nick Luck. He did a fantastic job yesterday at the post position draw, and he is with Michelle Yu.
Like I said, star power when you hang out by the gap. I am joined by Nick Luck. Can I call you international racing expert, Nick Luck?
Well, you can call me what you like, and always have done, so why break the habit of a lifetime?
That is true. I do call you whatever I want. Nick, a lot of Euros here today. You got to tell me someone that I can be looking forward to, someone that I can maybe pull out of my back pocket on the big day.
So there isn't that headliner. There isn't that headline name. So last year it was Enable. This year it would have been Magical. Sadly, she's not here. But I do think there's some intriguing depth to the European Challenge. I'm looking forward to the mile as a race to watch, just because I think it's a crazy race with so many conflicting form lines. It's very hard to actually imagine what's going to happen, and I just think there's one or two horses sliding under the radar that could run quite well. The Space Traveller, I think, is quite an interesting runner. It's got the form to be a legitimate contender. I think dear old Swedwise, stable companion, could run quite. His owner companion, I'm sorry, could run a big race. So yeah, there's lots of European horses that I'm interested in. In the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint, there's a horse called Alligator Alley. Mm-hmm. Okay, he's not easy, and he doesn't hit the gate very well, which is, potentially a problem. If he gets his brain in gear and jumps out of the stalls, I'm quite sure he's about the most talented horse in the race. So I'll definitely bet him at big odds.
All right, now I got to go Breeders' Cup Turf, because obviously we have bricks and mortar for the U.S., but it's a little beyond his distance scope. So U.S., Euro, U.S., Euro?
I think it'll either be Anthony Van Dyck or Old Persian. I do think it'll be another European winner, because I do worry about bricks and mortar at the distance, and he's going to have to be given such a finesse ride, I think, to win this. At the likely odds, I just favour Old Persian. There's 2 bits of form he has, one in Maidan this year, one when he won the Great Voltigeur at York last year, which make him a serious player. Those 2 performances showed that on fast ground at 1.5 miles he can run very fast, and that's what you need round here. So I don't think he was at his best when he won in Canada. If he improves off that and returns to the old form, I think Old Persian's legit. Anthony Van Dyck's probably had the best preparation of any horse coming to the Breeders' Cup. Lovely piece of work at Dundalk the other day. Aidan O'Brien's very confident about him. I think he would have run here even if Magical had come. Mm-hmm. So I can't see him being off the board, but I think at the likely odds, given that Aidan's horses are quite often over bet at Breeders' Cup, I think Old Persian from a stable Charlie Appleby, whose record is pretty much unimpeachable with a few runners he's brought to these events, is the one to be with.
I'm not sure if you know, too, Charlie Appleby is fast. We tried to catch him earlier when Old Persian came off the track. He was down the gap so fast I couldn't even blink.
He will give you loads of his time if he can. He's as hospitable and friendly a trainer as you're likely to find. So, yeah, he's got steely ambition beneath that jovial exterior as well. He knows what he's bringing to these events.
Thanks for joining us, Nick.
It's my pleasure, as always.
Oh, guys, hope you had your pens out for all that information from Nick Luck.
I mean, just the way he carries himself is always entertaining. And Nick Luck will be part of the NBC broadcast of the Breeders' Cup. TVG is very proud to be working in conjunction with NBC and the Breeders' Cup to show you all the Breeders' Cup races live on TVG, with the exception of the Breeders' Cup Classic. But between NBC, TVG, and this Breeders' Cup feed, you've got it all covered, and you can be playing Friday and Saturday, two of the best days of racing. How strong is the European contingent this year to the Breeders' Cup? We always talk about how they're the ones to beat in the turf races. Are they bringing over serious contenders once again?
Look, there's no headliner, like Nick said. There's no star in here. There's no, Goldakova. There's no, Enable. So I don't think it's the strongest contingent we've seen. But, again, domestically, we don't have, in some of those divisions, we don't have the strongest contingent either. But I'm with him with Old Persian. I think bricks and mortar, there's some question marks for him at the 1.5 mile distance. And one thing we know about Old Persian, he can get that trip, and that could be key here.
Well, because of what you talked about, with everyone kind of being even in their resumes, it makes for some wide-open races. I thought there's no more wide-open race than the TVG Breeders' Cup Mile on the turf. And here's a look at Hageman, who last time out was at Longchamp for trainer James Tate.
Yeah, I mean, had a good year, a couple of wins. He won the Group 3, the Prix du Palais Royal at Longchamp, but I think he's just a notch below some of the best in Europe. I think he's probably going to be, struggling to be in the mix here. Then again, we've always said it's a wide open race. So on the flip side of that, it wouldn't surprise me if a big price jumped up and won this race.
And Hageman, I mean, ultimately on the day, what do you think as far as what kind of price we might get on this horse?
I think he'd be double digits, right? I have to double check what the morning line maker installed him in here. He was yesterday at the draw was 12-1 on the morning line from post 13.
And with the turf course here at Santa Anita, just coming to California in these conditions, you always get a firm turf. Is there a certain horse, a certain European horse that takes to this type of turf course?
I think the European. I mean, they're going to bring horses here that like the ground. That's key. Because you don't want to travel all this way if you've got a horse that just revels in soft ground. So they're bringing horses that have an affinity for a firm turf. So I think there's certain pedigrees that play here. I think we've the Great Saddler as well was never a productive sire here as offspring on the firm turf here, because that line likes a little bit of cut in the ground. But I think this horse can handle the ground. I just don't know whether he can handle the competition.
Joaquin?
Well, Todd, talk about high-pressure jobs on Breeders' Cup Friday and Saturday that nobody's going to be talking about here with head starter Jay Slender. He's going to be pushing the button for all 14 Breeders' Cup Championship races. Jay, first of all, how long you been on the gate crew here in Southern California?
I think I started in '78.
So did you?
Wow.
So were you on the gate crew the inaugural Breeders' Cup in 1984 at Hollywood Park?
I was. Yeah, that was it's gone fast, but I remember that day. That was. Did Franz Valentine win?
She got disqualified.
That's what it was. Yeah. Anyway, '84.
And how long have you actually been the head starter pushing the button here?
I got my first job at Los Alamitos, I think, in '91. And then I think I came over here maybe '98, '99. I don't know for sure. I can't remember.
Well, 14 Breeders' Cup races. You have the task of making sure everybody gets out of here on time. Show me the starting gate, first of all, and what are we looking at here? I know the power's not on, first of all, but how much force does it take to actually close these starting gates here?
Well, you just got to use a little manpower, pull these doors closed, lock them up, and then they're held together by a magnet, and the power would be on, the switch is up, and that would be holding those doors closed, and then if you want to step back, I'll just let it go.
I will step back with you.
All right, well, you better step back a little more. And they snap pretty good. and away they go.
How long have your guys on the great gate crew been with you?
I've had some guys with me since I started at Los Alamitos in 991. Some are still here. We're all getting a little older, and then I have some new guys. It's a tough job. Where these guys are getting beat up. I think the last month I've lost 4 guys to injuries, and so you got to bring someone out of the bullpen and have a new guy ready to go. And it's hard to train guys. People can ride and been around horses, but they get in that little confined area right there, and it's a whole different world.
It's an international event. There's so many horses that you and your crew know nothing about. Right. What is that process like to familiarize your guys' self with these horses that you've never seen before and to get a chance to work with them?
Well, I try to get these guys to come up, these Euros or anybody from the East Coast, wherever they come from. It's to their benefit to come up here and, let their horse see this gate and acclimate themselves, because it's all about, getting out of that gate clean and having their horse relaxed. But, they're all different. You never know what could happen once they get in there. Every race is different. So it's exciting. It's a rush. And so you never know what's going to happen.
How are your nerves on Breeders' Cup Day? You said you've done this for many, many years, but Breeders' Cup Day is different. So how are your nerves on the big day?
You try to keep cool. I try to just, once I get out there, just to, you want to put in your head that it's just another day, but you're trying to give everybody, it's all about giving every horse from the favorite to the 99 to 1 shot the same break. And, it depends on your crew. Your crew makes you. Starter, if you don't have a good crew, you're nothing. But it's exciting, seeing the horses from all over in the crowd, and it's a festive couple days.
Jay, thank you so much for the time. We wish you nothing but clean breaks this weekend.
Thank you.
All right, guys, head starter, Jay Slender.
And it is one of those jobs, you don't notice them until something goes wrong. When there's a slow break, it's like, then we go back and look, why did that happen?
Right.
Was it the assistant starter? Was it a mechanical malfunction?
It's the type of profession, you're right. If everything goes right, they don't get any credit.
Yeah,
because
that's
going
right.
to happen. It's when things go wrong. And Jay's a great guy, head starter. I mean, he's been here a long time. I know him pretty well. Great surfer, by the way. Boy, he can hang 10.
I didn't know that.
Oh, no. I mean, I'm not a surfer, but he can really ride the pipe.
Right into the green room. I like it. Well, look, it is Southern California, and people will be experiencing all that it has to offer. And the focus, it's nice for so many entertainment options for thoroughbred racing to be front and center on Friday and Saturday. Throughout this week, we've been asking for your questions about what we've been showing you in the morning. Maybe it's a specific horse. Maybe it's a question about what happens in the mornings. It's QA at the Cup, and you can send those questions via social media on Twitter. Just use the hashtag QA at the Cup so we can identify your question. And sometimes we use vernacular on the show that we take for granted that some of you may not know out there.
Yeah, I've got a question from Stephen K. at 6701. He said, Omaha Beach is coming out on the track. You said the horse is going to have a blowout. What does that mean? Is that a work, or is that just a stretch of the legs? A blowout will be a timed workout, but it'll be a short workout. Usually a blowout means a quick 3 furlong breeze or even a quarter of a mile, something that can be timed and logged. That would be my assessment of a blowout. So Richie Mandela is not going to give him a hard work. He just wants to sharpen him. We heard Bill Mott at the post position draw say that about a late yesterday. She's only worked 3 furlongs the last couple of works. Quick blowouts just to get a little more speed into him and get him sharp.
Stephen K., there's the answer to your question. We'd like more questions on QA at the Cup, and our entire staff will be taking them on throughout the show. And in fact, it looks like they are taking a break, so that gives us a chance to get to more QA at the Cup. Michelle?
Getting to some of those questions that are coming in for the hashtag QA at the Cup, and this one is from Alex Lesinki, and he says, can I see Mark Cassie's horse, and how is Mark? Well, I talked to Mark a little bit earlier, and he is doing great, obviously in good spirits here at the Breeders' Cup, and hey, there's a look at one of his horses, War of Will, who will go postward in the Breeders' Cup Classic. If you were watching a little earlier, you got to see Get Stormy coming off the track as well. Both horses been in high energy and seem to be training extremely well out here at Santa Anita. Keep those questions coming, and we'll get them answered and visit as many horses as we can.
And now we'd like to visit some of the Breeders' Cup past, and I think as years go on, people are going to appreciate even more and more what Beholder was able to do, particularly at the Breeders' Cup in her career, starting at the age of 2 and then all the way through the age of 6. It's not often that a thoroughbred racehorse can truly go out a winner, but she was able to do that in the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff here at Santa Anita, and in remarkable fashion, taking on Songbird. It is one of our top moments from the Breeders' Cup at Santa Anita and 9 previous outings here as a host. Let's look back at the remarkable finish to Beholder's career. It was right here at Santa Anita in the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff.
Then it's Carolina away running in 4th position. Landover C is next. Stellar Wind, who just did not come out of the gate well at all. It's about 6 lengths off the lead with the Argentinian Corona del Inca alongside of her. Forever Unbridled is last, and Songbird leads the way through a 23-1 opening quarter mile. A solid first fraction for her, but she's in the clear as they race on to the backstretch. I'm a Chatterbox is running along in 2nd position onto the backstretch run. And then comes Carolina. Beholder on the outside is 4th. She's now 4 lengths off of Songbird up the backstretch. It's another 2.5 to Stellar Wind, and Victor Espinoza has her 6 lengths off the lead right now. Then Landover C, Forever Unbridled, and Corona del Inca. So it's a 47 flat half for Songbird. Very easy for her as she continues her journey into the far turn with a length lead. I'm a Chatterbox continues to pursue in 2nd. Beholder has not moved yet. Gary Stevens has not asked her to go as of yet. Now he's starting to ask just a bit, and she's a length and a half off of Songbird, 3rd in the far turn. Songbird is taken on now, and here comes Beholder, and a confrontation of champions as they come toward the top of the stretch. I'm a Chatterbox trying to cling to them. Stellar Wind's got work to do. Songbird and Beholder, and they're into the stretch, and here we go. Songbird set down. Beholder is alongside. Forever Unbridled is 2.5 lengths behind them. Furlong to run. Songbird, Beholder, they are nose to nose. This race living up to its expected power as they come to the wire. They're nose to the park. It's Beholder. I think she got her head down on the wire. Songbird dug in gamely all the way. The two of them right together.
I still don't know how Larry Colmus called that correctly. It was such a tight photo. It's still debated to this day. There are people who are convinced Songbird held on, but Beholder did get there in the narrowest of margins, and what a way to call it a career.
Yeah, especially with the Stevens-Mike Smith picture as well. Friends off the racetrack, rivals on it. And some of the best performances we've seen at the Breeders' Cup have come from fillies. Beholder winning 3 races, and, of course, the great Goldacova, 3 consecutive Breeders' Cup miles.
And some of the best have happened right here at Santa Anita. That's number 3 on our Magnificent 7. When we come back, the Magnificent Matoli. It's breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, presented by TVG. There are no two better betting days in thoroughbred racing than what the Breeders' Cup brings you this Friday and Saturday. TVG is very proud to be the official wagering partner of the Breeders' Cup. Great incentive to join us, especially with fee-free deposits. Deposit money without fees. That's coming up October 28th through 31st. Get all the details at tvg.com/promos. We will be back shortly with more Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup presented by TVG. Welcome back to Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, a live look out onto the main track at Santa Anita, as well as the training track, turf course, getting a lot of action as well. We're going to be joining Matoli. We'll be working live in just a little bit. But
Look at that.
And this is why
when
people come to Santa Anita for the first time, they go, oh, I had no idea. And that mountain range has been here since the beginning of time, and it never fails to impress. There are a lot of great views at racetracks around the world, but there is no view that is replicated like that. The view from the Santa Anita Grandstand.
It's made for TV. It's like the Rose Bowl parade here on New Year's Day. They say, when they show that on television, because it's a made-for-TV event for television with the picturesque backdrop, and in the dead of winter, there's usually bright sunshine out here. The influx of people coming to move here and live here after showing that Rose Bowl parade is just amazing. And I think the same thing here. This is, an absolute perfect backdrop for a television event.
Come on out and see Santa Anita for yourself. It is a cathedral of horse racing. When you walk in, there are these statues that pay homage to the greats over the years, from jockeys like George Wolfe to the fantastic horses who were here. Seabiscuit, who won the first $100,000 race in California, which was the Big Cap, which grew to be $1 million race. John Henry is honored here with a statue. Zenyatta, who took the Breeders' Cup Classic 10 years, that's hard to believe, 10 years ago against the boys. Talk about time flying by, and trying to follow in those footsteps is elate. And we also got our new Breeders' Cup gear. I don't know if you've been following me on the Twitter at ToddTVG. We've been waiting for our new Breeders' Cup gear for the show to come in. It came in today, so I've been wearing old jackets and showing some of the old jackets. Trainer Graham Motion has taken an interest in that. And he said, not only is this a great show to tune into, but he likes our new Breeders' Cup gear, and that is high praise coming from one of the best trainers anywhere in the world. Graham Motion knows what it's like to have a big day on a Breeders' Cup Day. He's looking to participate once again this year, and we appreciate him watching Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. We'll have more right after this. A spot is waiting for you at the Breeders' Cup. Tickets still available for Friday and Saturday. Friday is Future Stars Friday, so the focus is on 2-year-olds. And one of the toughest TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile will highlight the day. So tough, as a matter of fact, that Bob Baffert believes he has a superstar in 8 rings, but he said it's the toughest TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile he's ever been in, especially with the presence of Dennis's Moment in Maxfield.
Yeah, he thinks it is. And he, like everybody else, he says the winner's going to come from one of those 3.
Yeah,
he just said it.
I tried to look at and make cases for other horses, and I just can't. You can maybe get by one of the big 3, but you're not getting by all 3 of the big 3 in the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Big names coming onto the track and off the racetrack, but
That's
right
a good
now,
shot though.
this shows you how they're waiting to come back.
Yeah,
out
we've seen
a
tight shot all week long with our reporters standing down there. But when they wait to come on the gap, now the track is open. I think they're coming on, but it's a bit like. I guess the analogy would be an NFL team coming out into the field where they all congregate in the tunnel and come out. I know some of these new stadiums, like the Dallas Cowboys, when they go back to the locker room, they have an area where fans can actually watch the players go back in. That's kind of what Clocker's Corner is there. You've got a good view as these horses make their way back to the stable area.
And they've got the breakfast marquee area right next to Clocker's Corner. So if you're a fan that has come out early, you're in for a treat. And I've always said one of the undersold aspects of thoroughbred racing is the accessibility. Because like you said, Simon, there are stadiums where you can get up close to the players, but you've got to pay a premium price to do that. That is not the case at your local racetrack. In fact, a lot of local racetracks have mornings where you can come out and enjoy donuts and watch workouts, and there is no exception here at the Breeders' Cup.
You can come out of Clocker's Corner any day of the week you want. Have breakfast.
You'll be standing next to Bob Baffert. You'll be standing next to the top trainers in our sport, and like I said, they're very accessible, and they all realize we have a responsibility to be ambassadors for our sport. So, yeah, horse racing accessibility unlike any other sport out there. Wrecking Crew is in the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile. The early part of the Del Mar season, we got to see him, in fact, before his first start, and we heard how good he was, and he delivered in that debut. Since then, he's had a couple of other sprints with the Grade 2 Best Pal and the Grade 1 Del Mar Futurity, seconds in both those races. Is there the possibility he'll improve going around 2 turns, or do we already know what we're going to get with Wrecking Crew?
I've got some question marks about the ability to see out the distance, just because of the influence of, yes, it's true on the dam side, so there's some distance limitations there. He's not a speedball by any means. He's not a runoff at these shorter trips, but I just don't know whether he's maybe a one-turn horse, a horse that can sit and finish going 1 turn. I think going 2 turns, he's going to be a little closer to the pace, and I have a few question marks about him seeing out the distance.
Wrecking Crew out on the racetrack, a Ridgeline son of Sky Kingdom out of the Yes It's True mare, True Littleville, bred by West Rock Stables in the Commonwealth of Kentucky and owned by Rockingham Ranch and David Burnson, trained by Peter Miller. Wrecking Crew out on the track here this morning. I know, Michelle, you just loves how this horse looks physically, but again, that's the one thing I always caution people when we do these work shows. We may rave about a workout, but at the end of the day, is that horse's best performance good enough to win the particular race that they're in? Wrecking Crew can look the part, he can work great, but if he's not good enough to beat the likes of a Maxfield or a Dennis's Moment or 8 Rings, you always have to come back to that, especially if you're going to be playing the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile on Friday. But Wrecking Crew out on the racetrack here at Santa Anita shortly after the renovation break, and we're also awaiting Matoli, the favorite for the Breeders' Cup Sprint, which is always a contentious field, but even more so this year.
No question about that, and we'll get more into the post-position discussion a little bit later on. Matoli's made his way onto the track. That shot that we saw of them at the Gapasaur late coming on as well, so very busy here right now after the track is open for these Breeders' Cup horses.
With Wrecking Crew, trained by Peter Miller, obviously he has a good base down at San Luis Rey, a training center south of here that a lot of people have maybe heard of it. Some of you have not, but with Peter Miller, he does bring horses, obviously, over to Del Mar, and they have great success with San Luis Rey being so close. And then Wrecking Crew has been here at Santa Anita for a while, including a workout back on October 23rd, going 6 furlongs from the gate in 1:13.4. It does seem like with the workouts that this horse has had since the Grade 1 Del Mar Futurity, just judging by the distances, that they really are trying to get a foundation in here, because the attempt to go around 2 turns for the first time.
Yeah, he should. I mean, he should be fit now with the 6 furlong workouts, the 3 sprints. He's drawn right next to Dennis's Moment. He drew post 2. So, I mean, I think we know what we're going to get from him coming out of sprint races. His hand is going to be forced early. And you can see he's relaxed here. I mean, he's very, very, very relaxed in the morning. He's not a runoff or a speedball by any means. So, I mean, mentally, would he have the ability to see out the trip? Yes. I think he's got the tools mentally to be able to do it. But, the pedigree comes into play at some point, and you don't know about that until you put him through that test.
Well, you talked about Dennis's Moment drawing the rail right next to him, and Wrecking Crew will have Paco Lopez aboard. I think the connection's already kind of tipping their hand. This horse is going to be aggressively ridden from the start, I would think, and maybe even take the initiative early and take the lead.
I think so. And Dennis's Moment might be pleased about that, I would think. But look at the way he moved. I mean, you can see why he was an $875,000 purchase at a 2-year-old in training sale earlier this year. So that means 2 things. He obviously worked very fast, and he had the physical looks and attributes to go along with it. And you can see he's got a very, very smooth motion.
Wrecking Crew 20-1 in the morning line for the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile. On the other end of the spectrum, we've got an older horse and the favorite for the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Matoli is out on the track. We're also receiving word that there's a loose horse in the area, and we don't know if this is going to affect their plans. It doesn't look like it right now, and so now we've heard they've taken care of that situation, so everything can move on with Matoli. We heard trainer Bob Baffert talking about this yesterday with his two-way radio. If those situations come up, he's able to communicate to his riders to be aware. But there's also a communication system at every racetrack to make everyone aware, and as our understanding, that situation has been handled. So Mitole about to break off here for the last major work before the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and as we've been talking about, he's been here a while, going all the way back to September 30th.
Yeah, and that's a move we've talked about and seen from Steve Asmussen in years past with many different horses at many different venues. He likes to sometimes get in ahead of the game and get in here early, and he drew post position 4, and I think that's ideal for him. You got Catalina Cruiser in 1, Hog Creek Hustle, Frenzy Fire in 3, and Mitole post position 4. I think that's a good spot for him because Imperial Hint and Chancelot to his outside, and I mean, probably if he had the ultimate choice, maybe Steve Asmussen would have flipped with Chancelot, but I wouldn't be too disappointed getting post position 4.
And no one was disappointed in his previous workout from the gate, October 22nd. Here at Santa Anita, went 5 furlongs, 58-4 from the gate. That was the fastest work of the day at the distance. Obviously, we're not from the gate here today, and Mitole is working solo.
Yeah, he's a good workhorse. Obviously, we know that from the work we've seen. So the exercise rider's job here is just to think the horse is having just a quicker gallop rather than give the inclination that he's working. You know, he's got the exercise rider on rather than a jockey. And he just wants him to have a nice gallop and, well, an open gallop. It'll be a registered breeze of probably about a half and 49, an easy workout. He's moving good, but the rider is motionless. See, he looks like he's galloping. That's all you want. If he was to give him the cue right now, he'd be gone.
And he was gone in the Forgo last time out. His only loss this year was the Vanderbilt to Imperial Hint. They get to meet each other again, and I'm sure the connections of Mitole have been wanting that rematch because Mitole just didn't show up in the Vanderbilt that day. It wasn't just that Imperial Hint beat him. It's that he got trounced that day as he lost by 7.5 lengths, third in the Vanderbilt. But when you look at what he had done prior to that point, having won the Met Mile, at some point a sprinter has to have a subpar performance. You just don't know if you can get away with it and still get a win. Mitole just happened to meet Imperial Hint, who loves Saratoga and is a great sprinter in his own right. And I cannot wait to see these two hook up again in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. And that will be part of the Saturday program scheduled for race number 8.
Yeah, we had a question from Mindy. She said, why would you talk about Mitole possibly winning the Breeders' Cup Sprint?
Gulch?
Yeah, Gulch.
Yeah.
In 88. Silver Train did it, but in different years, 2005, 2006.
Yeah, we're talking about the rare double from a Met Mile to a Breeders' Cup Sprint in the same year. And so I noticed that as well. But that's why I said it was rare, because I couldn't remember offhand who had pulled it off. But it was Gulch back in 88. We also had another QA at the Cup question, and it was about post-position draws. And some of it was with trainers who have two horses in a race. Do they like when their horses draw right next to each other in the gate? And that doesn't apply to the Breeders' Cup Sprint, but a few other situations. And then also along the post position, Lloyd Levin asking, after the post position draw, what's the one horse that got the most unfavorable draw? I'm with you. I don't think, well, I would say Catalina Cruiser drawing the rail here, probably not a great thing for that horse if you thought he could win the Breeders' Cup Sprint. I thought there were more high profile, maybe unfavorable
for
draws.
Sure. And we're going to have a discussion about that a little later on. I think there's some major players that got the wrong end of the draw here. There's Mitole. Tremendous, easy workout. Nothing, just floating over the ground and absolutely thriving here at Santa Anita as he makes his way back. There, look at him. Very happy horse.
Mitole, and a horse that was in the conversation for Horse of the Year with the campaign that he was having. But again, there's no doubt who the best sprinter in the country has been consistently. It has been Mitole. Sister Charlie just doesn't lose. And you can go back to last year's Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. She wins there, and she just keeps on winning since then and seems to be getting better and better. And for me, we were talking about Beholder and just the nature of our game, how horses leave after accomplishing a lot as 3-year-olds. I love to see horses like Sister Charlie late in their career, a 5-year-old mare who keeps delivering, and we finally get to see what a horse can do when they mature.
I mean, owner Peter Brandt could have packed it in at the end of 2018 after winning the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, but she is an absolute win machine. going to be the prohibitive favorite in that race, and she's a major threat. I mean, I love that filly. I love the way she's just floating over the ground there, and I mean, I think, regardless of post position, I mean, she wins this race, I believe.
Well, she likes to run from off the pace, and they send out a stablemate to help her a little bit. You're going to give us a look at that later?
Yeah, I am. They've got a pacemaker, or a rabbit, as we like to call it. It's something that we don't see here in the United States very often. It's tactics that are employed in Europe more often than not, because the tempo of the races are usually a little slower. That's not the case here. American racing, just a little more up-tempo.
Sister Charlie out on the racetrack along with Matoli. And as we heard from Joaquin Jaime earlier, he talked to trainer Chad Brown. He said, I'm going to have a lot of my horses out here this morning, and here is a good example of that. Bricks and mortar. Chad Brown has campaigned him through a fantastic year, a year in which he has not lost. He's been 5 for 5. And when you go back to the beginning of the year, I was so impressed with his win in the inaugural running of the Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational. That was listed as a yielding turf course, but I cannot emphasize enough how much rain there was. It was an excuse for any horse to struggle. He did not. And then he went to the fairgrounds, and he almost got upset by a 40-1 shot, held on to win. But he's won in a variety of ways. What about Nick Luck's assertion earlier that the 1.5 miles is going to be the biggest obstacle for him?
Well, I mean, there are some question marks there. I mean, but, I look at his last 2 1/4 races, and I don't see any reason to think that the distance should be a problem. He's by Giant's Causeway. He comes from off the pace. And I honestly don't see that being an issue.
Bricks and mortar, a serious candidate for Horse of the Year. And Bricks and mortar comes into the Breeders' Cup Turf as your morning line favorite, but now has to take on some serious international competition out on the racetrack. Blue Prize, we're watching her career wind down, and what a resume it has been for her, especially with what she did last time out, defending her title in the Grade 1 Juddmonte Spinster at the Breeders' Cup. She's in the gate right now preparing for the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff.
There's a head starter, Jay Sender and his crew, and this is what we're talking about. I know that Jay and his crew, and he touched on it in Joaquin's interview, really appreciate when the out-of-town horses come to the starting gate, because I think it not only helps the horse, but it helps the crew. They know what they're dealing with here, and he loves it when these horses, as he said, from Europe and the East Coast come up to the starting gate. He encourages it. You can see, I mean, she's, 22 starts. She's used to the starting gate, and I don't think she's ever had a problem as such in the afternoon, and they're just making sure that she's accustomed to the new surroundings here, and they're going to back her out, and that's all it is. You just put her in, stand, and you see the assistant starter standing in the empty stall next to her. That's to simulate how it will be in a race with people up in the gate.
Blue Prize at the age of 6, back for the Breeders' Cup Distaff, and to call it a career after that. Ignacio Correas has done a fantastic job in his work with Blue Prize. A live look at her, leaving her schooling session from the gate here at Santa Anita. Now, a live look out at the Korean shipper, Blue Chipper.
Yeah, we've seen a few more workouts than I probably anticipated today. And, of course, we've seen the Japanese contingent go, and we stick with our theme from the Pacific Rim with the Korean horse, Blue Chipper, breezing here. Again, another true North American pedigree by Tisnow out of a Dixie Union mare. And, look, his race record is outstanding. He's only been beaten once, and that was in the second start of his career. And you just don't know what we're dealing with here. It's just, maybe if this horse had come here 4 or 5 months ago and started on a U.S. campaign, maybe, and settled in, he might have had a better chance. I don't know. Or maybe he's just that good where he can overcome it. The one thing I will say, as we said earlier on in the week, these horses from the Far East, the dirt tracks they run on are very deep and sandy. They used to kick back, which I think is a huge advantage over, say, a European horse coming here and trying the dirt. At least these horses have been in that situation. Look at the way he goes.
Blue Chipper going in the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, and coming in from Korea and proving once again that horse racing is a global game. Michelle?
Flavian Pratt was aboard Blue Chipper this morning. What'd you guys do, and what were your thoughts?
We went 3.8. I picked it up a little bit down the backside, but basically went 3.8. I thought he went really good. I love the way he's moving, and so everything is set up.
It looked like you were talking to the trainer and maybe giving him some pointers. Were you trying to make any adjustments, or did you have some advice?
No. I mean, the horse is doing great. I mean, I wouldn't change anything. I think we're going to go to the gate on Thursday and go from there.
All right. Thanks, Flavian.
Thank you.
Guys?
Would this be one of the biggest upsets of the weekend if you were able to pull that off? I mean, we're talking about Omaha Beach, who many people think is the best 3-year-old out there, and then Improbable thrown into that mix. If Blue Chipper pulls off the win, biggest upset?
Oh, huge. That would be a massive upset, and it would put Career on the map. Like I said, they're an emerging market as far as the thoroughbred business goes, and this would get it started. He was floating over the racetrack there, and like I said, those tracks are much deeper. This is probably easy pickings here, skipping over this firmer surface.
Matoli, a live look as he leaves the racetrack. He's really, again, made an impression every time he's come out in the mornings. Steve Asmussen has Matoli ready, and Matoli has already had a phenomenal year, but to take the Breeders' Cup Sprint and they get a measure of revenge against Imperial Hint and add that to a Met Mile win takes Matoli to another level for sure.
Certainly does, and he looks perfect. That was an easy work for him. He was going at about probably 65, I would say 65% of his true top speed in that workout there. I mean, it was easy for him, nothing, and you don't want to do any more than that, especially at this stage.
Michelle has been there with all these horses leaving the racetrack.
Thanks, Todd. We're just running behind Matoli right now. I got to say, when he came off the track, you could not even tell that he had a blowout. He was not breathing heavy. In fact, I think the pony was probably breathing even heavier than Matoli was. And I looked at Scott, and he gave me a big thumbs up right now. So we'll get to hear from him in just a second. But this looked like a really great blowout from him.
Well, there's that term blowout again.
Exactly.
But you do want to save some of that for the Breeders' Cup Sprint itself. But Matoli, he loves his work. And, you know, we always talk about, especially with people who haven't been around the sport a lot, and they ask about the thoroughbred racehorse, they love what they do, and this is what's bred into them. And so you look at a horse like Matoli, and you see what the equine athlete is all. I mean, look at that. By the way, I could just look at his definition all day. He's just a gorgeous racehorse.
Yeah, I mean, he looks like an Adonis right there. You know, they're absolutely trained to perfection to the minute here, and Matoli will cool out now. And these blowouts, you know, we see them. The term blowout, it's when a workout is closer to the race. In years past, like way back in the day, trainers used to breeze horses, you know, sometimes the morning of the race, just a quarter of a mile, a sharp workout, or even the day before. They do it in Europe a lot, they used to. And the idea is just to, you know, wake up the horse, put a little more speed in it. It's like you or I, if we did a quick, sharp workout right after taking a shower, you feel great. You really feel energized. It brings the endorphin levels up. You feel good. And that's the idea of doing these, you know, little blowouts closer to the race.
Live look at Matoli as he cools out after another fantastic morning here at Santa Anita, getting some water along the way. And as you said, hydration key for any athlete, the equine athlete, no exception.
And the way they do it, if you're just joining us for the first time, he'll sip, and then he'll walk around that toe ring for probably about the next 45, 50 minutes and just let him sip some water. You don't want to put his head in there and just let him drink the whole bucket. I think that's about enough. If I was him, I'd pull his head out right now. I mean, it's like an athlete. You know, you don't want to go to the sideline in an NBA game and just swallow that whole Gatorade bucket. There we go.
Matoli with a well-earned water break here after being out on the racetrack this morning at Santa Anita. And we also have some guests who will be stepping in here in just a little bit, joining us on our set. We're going to have a representative from Big Ass Fans, sponsor of the Breeders' Cup Dirt and Mile. So while Matoli cools out, we're going to welcome some guests in. We'll be back with more of Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, presented by TVG, right after this. Improbable, one of the main contenders for the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Bob Baffert keeps touting everyone on this horse, while Omaha Beach is the favorite. Improbable is the second choice. And one thing is for sure, Big Ass Fans, in a short amount of time, has made its mark on thoroughbred racing. Joining us now from Big Ass Fans is Alex Risen. Alex, good to see you. Good to finally have you on the set.
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming, Alex.
Thanks for having me on set.
So the first time I ever saw a Big Ass Fan, I know there's some of you out there who maybe have not seen their products outside of the racetrack, but I was sitting in the Bluegrass Airport in Lexington, Kentucky, and I looked up and I'm in the TSA line. I'm like, that is the biggest fan I've ever seen. And I look closer, it's a Big Ass Fan. And I'm like, that makes
really
so much
is,
sense.
yeah.
But I got to see what a great product it is. First of all, for those who don't know, what is Big Ass Fans, and where are they based?
All right, so we're based in Lexington, Kentucky, so you can kind of see where the partnership maybe starts to make a little bit more sense as we go through it. Some people I know originally were, how could we have Big Ass Fans, in the Breeders' Cup? Oh, my goodness. And it was, this is not, a partnership that is really made in heaven. Well, when you really start peeling back the, layers of that onion, it starts to make a little more sense. We started in 1999 in Lexington, Kentucky, HLS Fan Company, not a memorable name. High volume, low speed fans.
Right.
We make really big fans, and so after 4 years of doing that and answering the phone of, hey, you're the guys that make those big ass fans. Yes, that's us. Just change the name. You know who you're calling. So we make big fans, but now we make little fans. We make residential fans. Some of those are in the Breakfast Marquee.
Oh, so you're not just in the industrial space.
Yeah.
You're in the residential space.
We do the residential game. We have a new fan that's kind of really rolling out next year, the I6, and so it kind of brings that industrial.
And that name kind of came organically then, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're in the PR business, so you must love it,
I
right?
am public relations, and some people go, "Oh, how could you be in public relations for a company that has ass in the name of it, though?" It's, isn't that kind of dancing around it all the time? No, it's the name. We have fun. It is what it is. We're not sitting here making a bunch of puns all the time anymore. That used to be kind of the deal early on. You're a mom and pop operation, but we have offices in Canada, Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, 775 international employees.
Well, look, there's been a lot of great marketing ideas, but if they didn't have the product, those businesses failed. And your business keeps growing because the product is sensational. And, in fact, Michelle Yu was talking to me earlier when we were talking about you coming on, and she said, yeah, they've got them on the backside. They've got them over in the Breakfast Marquee. And they're fantastic, and we've got one sitting right over here. But talk about another practical example, Coolmore.
Yeah.
You guys work with their farm here in Coolmore, America.
Yeah, and Coolmore, Australia just purchased a few more because they were working so well here in the States. So we're going to have a couple more of our big fan. The Powerfoil X series is kind of our flagship, and that's what a lot of the farms, have gone with. Windstar has the same model. Darley has the same model. So it's one of those things, and now it's a kind of the keeping up with the Joneses, right? If you're going to have a breeding shed and you're going to be a top operation, you better have a Powerfoil X.
Well, and Sonny, you know this when you were a trainer, and that's the one thing when I first went on the backside, they'd have these rinky-dink fans and
box fans.
Yeah, the box fans.
And it wasn't enough to keep the flies away and just keep that, again, to keep the ventilation going, which is important.
Yeah, as a former trainer, I mean, you need cross ventilation. That's the biggest thing you need in a stable area. And I mean, I used to have them on a pole like this with the round circle there.
A
about
little
this
pedestal
big.
fan.
Yeah,
a little 24-inch pedestal fan. Yeah, we do those too.
Yeah,
but we can do them bigger.
Yeah, but this thing's a monster. Right?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and you could test in a wind tunnel with that thing.
Yeah, no, Big Ass Fans. If you haven't checked out their product, you got to check it. Or what is if someone wants to check you guys out online?
I'll give you a guess.
BigAssFans.com.
Yeah.
And they got the donkey as a logo. Well, here's the thing. You've got a great background in horse racing before you went to Big Ass Fans, so you have an opinion. You've looked at the field.
Just enough.
And let me just say, as we look at the field for the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, on behalf of the industry, thank you to your company for stepping up and being a name and title sponsor of a race on Breeders' Cup Day. In an age where we have to look for sponsors and justify why you want to be connected to horse racing, Big Ass Fans has jumped up and said, we want to be connected to horse racing. So as you look at this field for the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, who do you like?
All the action's going to Omaha Beach, and we know that, and rightfully so, right? When you see the morning line 8 to 5, Mike Smith and the connections, Richard Mandela, but I'm a Mr. Money guy. I'm not
Mr. Money.
I'm a Mr. Money guy. Chester
6
Thomas.
to 1.
Wow.
Chester Thomas. You just want to see that guy in the winner's circle. He is a good time. The owner there of Mr. Money, and if you look at the pedigree, Golden Sense, Mr. Money, Golden Sense won the Dirt Mile, 13 and 14. Maybe there's something there.
I mean,
You know,
between
a little
that,
magic, a little outside shot.
between that, and you're probably hoping for temperatures to be about 110 here, right? I mean, that's a dream for you. That's an absolute dream.
But I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
These low 80s are okay with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, what a true pleasure. And again, thank you to you and your company, Big Ass Fans, for sponsoring the Dirt Mile.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate
Alex
it.
Risen joining us
Thanks,
from
Alex.
Big Ass Fans.
There it is, right here.
Yeah.
Oh, they're rolling it in.
They're rolling it
There
in.
you go.
Right there.
Yeah.
The Big
It's
Ass
the top
Fan
of it.
right behind us. And again, check it out. They've got something for everybody. Michelle, what do you have?
Joined by Scott Blasi and Matoli still cooling out behind us. What did you want going into the blowout, and what were your thoughts about it?
Matoli's really sharp right now. We just wanted a nice, smooth work away from the pole. Just wanted him feeling good coming home like he was, and he's a really happy horse right now.
You mentioned before that he's very, very calm in the mind, kind of rope horse mentality, and we've seen that in his schooling. How is he when he gallops, and how is he when he works? Is it hard to keep him to go a little bit slower?
Well, you can tell. I mean, he's smart. We're coming up to a race right now, and he knows, and he's on it right now. So, he's going to feel good the next couple days, but Angel and I will try to keep him under control.
And Red, don't forget.
Yeah, Red's always there.
Guys.
So the connections of Matoli, very happy with where they are. And, with a high-profile horse, if something's not right, you can almost kind of tell, but nothing but smiles from the Asmussen barn when they talk about Matoli and Midnight Bisou as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've seen nothing negative this week on what we've brought you on this programming. Day 4 now, Breakfast of the Breeders' Cup. We always said that you're looking for something that may turn you off a horse. I honestly haven't seen anything. Usually, I've done these shows in the past. I can come with 1 or 2 horses. I like, having seen them this week consistently, I'm going to play against. Not the case.
We're also taking your questions with Q&A at the Cup. Gabby.
Well, it's now time to answer another hashtag QA at the Cup. Thank you to Joey House, who's been very active, an active participant in the hashtag QA at the Cup. He asked, what's the latest the Breeders' Cup will allow shippers to come in before race day? Well, the answer is those Friday participants. So on Future Stars Friday, all of the horses have to be here on the grounds by 10 a.m. today, Tuesday, 72 hours out of the race day. And then we also are talking about the Saturday championship day. All the horses have to be here by 10 a.m. on Wednesday. So again, 72 hours out from the entire race day. But also talking about the also eligibles who have not necessarily drawn into the race yet. All also eligibles for both Friday and Saturday have to be here by noon on Thursday. So by Thursday, every single horse, whether they're in the body of the race or on the also eligibles, will be here at Santa Anita.
Okay, and if it were up to you, if you're, go back to the time when you were training, when would you want to ship in before a big race?
Depending on the horse, but at least a week before.
And
I don't necessarily need a work over the track. With a turf horse, I don't think it's important to have a work over the course. I train primarily turf horses. I think maybe a dirt horse, I would probably come out, 10 days, 2 weeks for an event like this.
Is there a distinct advantage to being a locally based horseman when you're talking about an East Coast horse coming to the West Coast? If you're a West Coast based horseman and it's in your backyard, is that a huge advantage?
Some people on the face of it would say yes, but I think results would dictate no. I think when you say, well, if you had the Breeders' Cup at Santa Anita every year, that's not fair. I mean, that's, like an NBA team playing in their home building for 82 games. I mean, 182 games. But on the results would dictate otherwise, especially with European runners. And I know the turf is a little bit different because the dirt surface, everyone wants to get a work over the dirt surface, not so much the turf. But I don't think so. I really don't. I know shipping can be a headache, and yes, there is an element of getting a fever, a shipping fever, a temperature, which can eliminate you from a race if you're coming from outside of this jurisdiction. But I think that's about it. And if you come in early enough, like Steve Asmussen did, then you can overcome any minor little issue that you have, coming here on the plane.
Earlier, Michelle Yu was lamenting to Nick Luck that trainer Charlie Appleby was deceptively quick. He kept getting away before she could get an interview. She finally caught up with him.
I put my running shoes on. I was able to catch up with Charlie Appleby. Old Persian was on the track this morning. First day visiting. How was the results?
Yeah, great. Look, he's a seasoned traveller now, so he takes it all in well, and but Jason, who rides him, was pleased he went out on the dirt track there and handled the surface and enjoyed himself. So it's just an easy stretch this morning, but yeah, all the signs are good.
And you said, world traveler, obviously. He just went to Canada. Did he go back to his home base and then come back over here? I mean, how does that affect a horse when they have to travel in a short amount of time?
To be fair, he did. He went back to Newmarket, but like I say, he travels very well, so it doesn't take too much out of him. And his trip to Canada, like I say, he won quite well out there. So again, it wasn't like it was a hard race, and we were shipping back after a hard race. So no, he was fresh and well when he arrived back in Newmarket. He's had a nice little break and shipped out here, and all the signs are very good.
And what's going to be his plan between now and Breeders' Cup Saturday?
We'll let him do a little bit more tomorrow. Again, we'll probably stay on the main track there and just let him do a full circuit around there and let him just stretch his legs a bit more. And then hopefully we might just take a look at trying to get there maybe on the turf on Thursday.
We've been very into kind of the horses' personalities coming in to the Breeders' Cup. Can you tell us a little something about him?
I'd say, apart from me, like I say, he's a great traveller. Personality-wise, has he got? You wouldn't want to go up there on your own and try and give him a pass anyway. Unless you've got a polo in your hand. But look, Marie Murphy's travelled over here. Jenna, who looks after him, and Jason, who rides him, they know him inside out. And but you won't find one of them going in the box on their own with him. That's for sure.
Thanks, Charlie.
Pleasure. Take care,
guys.
I'll do some translation there for you. The box is a stall.
Okay.
And a polo is a mint. He said you got to give him a polo.
I didn't understand the polo part.
Yeah, polo.
And the polo I'm wearing underneath?
Yeah, no. It's a mint. It's a brand of mint in England. Polo mint. It's a round circular mint with a hole in the middle. So it looks like a little donut.
Well, it sounds like he's very confident in what this horse can do, taking on bricks and mortar in the Longines Breeders' Cup turf. There was a wry smile from Nick Luck yesterday when they were doing the post position draw for the Breeders' Cup turf sprint, and he said the name Shecky Shabazz. Jason Service of Maximum Security fame is going to send this horse one out.
Yeah, and all decked up there. Got the 4 white polos, and he's got the, you can see the sheepskin on his neck strap there and the martingale that goes underneath. That's just to prevent any chafing or rubbing there. And Shecky Shabazz, just an easy, relaxed gallop here. Nothing too fancy.
And pretty remarkable for a horse that was a $25,000 claimer just 3 starts ago and is now starting in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Shecky Shabazz, very, very fast. Took the Lucky Coin Stakes at Saratoga Gate to Wire, 5.5 furlongs in 101 flat. And then it caught a good turf course last time out in the Belmont Turf Sprint, led throughout much of that race before being caught in the final 110 yards to finish second. But we have seen Jason Service take horses out of the claiming ranks and turn them into amazing runners, with the most significant being his Maximum Security, a maiden claiming $16,000 horse who eventually won the Grade 1 TVG Betfair Haskell. Shecky Shabazz out on the track this morning, putting in some maintenance before the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint on Saturday, which will go as race number 5 on the card. We will be back with more Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, presented by TVG, right after this. Cameras everywhere you look.
That's a big-ass camera.
They've opened up a new product line.
This is a big-ass event.
No, but what was great is there were some horses leaving the paddock, and exercise rider looked over and goes, "That's a big-ass fan." Like, it's.
But from a PR standpoint, mission accomplished, right?
No, it is.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a great name and it's a great product. So, welcome back to our set just off the paddock here at Santa Anita. While we're waiting some other horses to come on the track, we wanted to take time out to talk about Sister Charlie, her amazing win streak that continues from winning the Maker's Mark Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf last year. She comes in this year as an 8-5 morning line favorite. On the surface, some would say that she's had some help, and she's getting help this year from a 30-1 shot, the longest shot in the morning line, Tejas.
Yeah, I mean, she was meant to get some help from Tejas last year at 66-1 in this race, and Tejas is assuming the role of a pacemaker, something that you don't see in the United States very often. Take a look at it. Sister Charlie post 6, Tejas post 2. The idea of a pacemaker or rabbit is to break on top of the field and ensure a quick pace. First 20 yards out of the gate, it's over. I mean, she is just there. She is a filler in the race now. She's not doing her job even for Sister Charlie. She's a 66-1 shot, getting in the way of a lot of other horses. And you turn for home, Sister Charlie on the outside there. Thais in trouble there. So, but it was game over out of the gate. Again, the idea of a rabbit, break sharp on top of the field and tow your stablemate around there, or give him a good lead, at least the field, to ensure an honest pace. She had no impact in this race whatsoever, but Sister Charlie was good enough to overcome it and still win the race without her pacemaker doing the right job. They went a half mile in 51-4, very slow. Flower Bowl this year. Let's move on to the Flower Bowl this year, where Thais breaks a lot sharper out of the starting gate. But does she do a job here? You have to ask yourself. Again, she loses contact with the field by opening up by 12 lengths. And I would say she didn't do a job here. You're going to see as they break out of the gate here.
A lot of anticipation there.
Yep. And this is Thais going to the lead. You can see Sister Charlie. She's number 2 in the same silk. So you would think Thais would probably sit right about here, right? 2 or 3 lengths in front of the field and ensure an honest pace. What does she do? She opens up by 12.
So it's almost as if she's in her own race. So what does it matter to the horses in behind? There's 2 races going in here. So we see the effect where she doesn't break on top. Didn't make a difference for Sister Charlie. So is this really making a difference for Sister Charlie when she does break this far out in front?
Absolutely not, because everybody in the race knows what she's in the race to do, and they're going to let her go to the front. It's no different than on a Wednesday afternoon here or Thursday afternoon at Santa Anita. You see a 50-1 shot on the lead. The riders let the horse go. Because here's what happens. If you go with her, it's going to be, I mean, a suicide mission. It won't work out for you. So you let her go. She doesn't have the quality of the horses in the field. You know she's going to come back to you. A half mile in 49 and change. So they went 51-4 in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. She's 14.5 lengths in front of her here, not really doing her job, and a half mile in 49. Sister Charlie still overcomes that. You have to eliminate Thais out of the picture here. The other riders ride their own race, and Sister Charlie gets up and wins fairly convincingly here.
So for her to, quote-unquote, do her job in your mind, what is she supposed to do in this year's Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf?
She's meant to do what she did in the Diana, and I'll give you a good example. Oh, by the way, the one thing Thais did do here, and which enhanced her pedigree, by opening up like that, she got enough separation to hold on to finish third and get a Grade 1 place. So, I mean, something positive came out of it for the connections on both ends. Here is what a rabbit is supposed to do. This is the Diana, mile and 1/8, probably a little too short for Sister Charlie there. She gets out. Look at the rider. I mean, he hustles. He's got the perfect post position for a rabbit, drawn down to the inside. There's no chance of him getting hung out wide. And this is what he's meant to do. But look at Mitchell Road, the horse on the outside there. That's a speedster as well. Now, Mitchell Road is running off and taking off with the pacemaker there because of the presence of Thais. If Thais wasn't in there, Mitchell Road would have assumed an easy lead here. So I'll get into the reasons about pacemaker here in just a second. But the opening quarter here, much, much quicker in the Diana, or the opening half mile. Recap, 51-4 in the Filly and Mare Turf last year. They went 49 and change in the Flower Bowl. With this speed duel in the early stages, they've gone 45-4.
Wow.
That's what Chad Brown wanted. He wanted a quick pace. A shorter race. He didn't want a horse getting loose on the lead where they could get some separation, kick off the turn, and hang on. He wanted the half mile quick. Why? Because it sets up for the late closing kick for Sister Charlie here in the Diana. So mission accomplished here.
Sister Charlie goes on to that clear win. And now, this time around in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, if Theus can deliver that, it's just an extra benefit to Sister Charlie. I mean,
Here's
if you were making the decision, would you say we need this pace setter all the time?
No, absolutely not. And those 3 races have proved it, right? I mean, she can close into a 51 half mile, she can close into a 49 half mile and win, and she can close into a 45 and 4 half mile and still win. I think what the pacemaker does in this situation, rather than ensure an honest pace, it ensures the tactics of the race. If pace wasn't in the race, it's not so much the pace that was set that day in the Diana, the last race we were sure. It takes Mitchell Road out of the equation. The horse that got low, it prevents a horse from going gate to wire. I think that's what it does, in my opinion. It doesn't ensure a quick pace. It prevents somebody that has tactical speed going gate to wire. We see it in Europe a lot. We've seen it one other time with this trainer in a controversial aspect as well.
Yeah, and that
it was Flintshire in the Sword Dancer.
Yeah, and
running interference.
Yeah, it almost looked like the halfback hitting the hole first, and then the fullback running through. And there was an inquiry posted with that. Do you see it more in turf races than dirt races?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because the tempo of the race is much slower, and you see it a lot in Europe. Sometimes they have 1 or 2 pacemakers. But I think the thing we can take away from it is to ensure the tactics of the race. It eliminates somebody else getting a lone lead. I think that's what it does.
Sister Charlie putting her win streak on the line, trying to defend her title in the Maker's Mark Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf with a little help from a friend. Let's get some help now on our show from Michelle Yu.
Guys, I'm joined by Jonathan Kinchin over here at the Breakfast Marquee, and we're going to do some trivia. This is kind of a throwback, actually, to when you were discovered, right?
It is, yeah, you discovered me. Del Mar, it was probably, I don't know, back when Zenyatta was running, so maybe 10 years-ish ago.
Well, that's a great time to actually rehash this. So I've got some trivia. Let's see how you can do. We'll start easy. How many horses have won at 2 different Breeders' Cup races?
Ooh, 2 different ones. I would say, I don't know the exact number. I know Beholder's won, right? So let's go with 3.
That is correct. Can you name the 3?
So Beholder's won. And then, no. Who else?
Zenyatta.
Oh, yeah. Zenyatta.
One more.
Curlin?
Secret Circle.
Secret Circle. That's right. You ran that, like, the juvenile sprint race, and then he also won the sprint.
Okay, who was the oldest horse to win a Breeders' Cup race? And you get a bonus if you know his age.
DeHaas?
No.
I have no idea.
Kaleidoscopio.
Wow, he won the marathon, right?
How old was he?
9.
Good job.
I'm just guessing.
I mean, you're doing all right. All right, let's see.
I'm a good guesser.
Who was the longest shot to win the Breeders' Cup? This is such a gimme.
Oh,
the Breeders' Cup Classic. To clarify,
what's the horse Arcane or Kong or whatever?
Bonus if you know the odds.
Oh, I don't know the odds.
133 to 1.
I was close again. Look, an expert guesser.
Who was described as unconquerable, invincible, unbeatable?
Untappable? No. There was no, that wasn't the one. It was Cigar.
Good job. Ding ding ding. And let's see, my last one to ask you. Who was the only horse to win 3 Breeders' Cup races?
Beholder?
No.
It wasn't Beholder? Oh,
no.
It wasn't Beholder.
Ask again. It's still not Beholder. Hold on. Still not Beholder. Nick's really good for TV. Good job. Yay. All right. I'm going to let Jonathan pick from my bag of Breeders' Cup goodies. There's some free past performances. There's some Breeders' Cup labeled gum. There's a hat. And if you see me around with my little piece of paper, if you don't know trivia, you better run.
Jonathan Kinchin, a good sport and one of the good people for our sport. He's also a very serious tournament player, and horse tournaments have risen in popularity and have actually buoyed the sport quite a bit. One of the biggest tournament destinations is the BCBC, the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, and it'll be Chuck Grubbs defending his title from last year at Churchill Downs. Chuck Grubbs won last year in the final race. I know Chuck.
You do?
Yeah, I know Chuck. So when I was at Del Mar over the summer, he comes out for the Del Mar meet.
Right.
And so this is obviously last summer with the Breeders' Cup in the fall at Churchill. He's like, hey, any horses you're paying attention to? I'm like, well, Accelerate is the obvious horse for the Breeders'
Sure.
Cup Classic. And so Chuck is a standardbred guy, but he keeps an eye on what's going on in thoroughbred racing. So wouldn't you know it, they come to the final race last year at the Breeders' Cup. Chuck shoves all in on Accelerate, nails the exacta, nails the try, big win bet. He ends up winning the whole tournament on Accelerate, $340,000. The other part to this, and I can attest to this knowing him well, is Chuck is, like Jonathan Kinchin, one of the really nice guys in the sport. But, yeah, Jonathan Kinchin, a tournament player, Chuck Grubbs, we're going to be introducing you to Chuck Grubbs tomorrow. The Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, one of the big stories, aside from what goes on the racetrack, what goes on through the windows here at the Breeders' Cup. Let's go back to what's going on the racetrack.
Well, Todd, we've been at the starting gate for the last few minutes and now made our way up to one of the most unique turf courses in North America. We're at the starting point where they're going to begin the Breeders' Cup turf. You look over to the left right here, you see the red and white pole. That is where they are going to begin the Breeders' Cup turf. And I just wanted to give the visual to see what these horses and riders are going to see right out of the starting gate. So starting gate's going to be right here. Let's go take a walk as we begin on this downhill turf course here. And first of all, you can see that they're going to come downhill. They're going to make a left. But if we turn around, you're just going to see exactly how much of an undulation that there is on this turf course. When we look all the way up, that's where they run the San Juan Capistrano. When the distance is 1 3/4 miles, that's where the 6.5 furlong starting point is to come down the hill. So we'll continue to make this walk down the hill over this turf course, and the grass is just absolutely pristine up here. We can take a look at this turf course right now. Not like they used to keep it. If you go back and you watch old replays when Santa Anita hosted the Breeders' Cup, say in '86 or 1993, you could see that the turf course was really, really long. When I put my hands in it, it only goes up to about my fingers. So we'll say roughly maybe 3 or 4 inches the length of this turf course here, but absolutely in pristine condition. So let's go ahead and continue to make this walk down this hillside turf course here. And this is exactly what the horses and riders are going to see as they break out of the starting gate. And Todd, I'll walk all the way to the bottom to where these horses will eventually cross the dirt. So it's going to take me a while. So I'll send it back to you. And the question I'll ask you guys is the subject of bricks and mortar in the Breeders' Cup turf is the distance question. He's never gone 1.5 miles, but when you look at this configuration of the downhill turf course, if a horse was ever going to get 1.5 miles where the connections felt that the distance might be a bit of a concern, wouldn't that be here at Santa Anita? Wouldn't the best place to get 1.5 miles for a horse that maybe might not be able to go that far be over this particular turf course, because we are going downhill for the first part of the race?
It's a salient point because exactly what you said, you can kind of coast that first part down the hill. And to this point about the unique layout of the turf course here at Santa Anita, most people refer to it as a European-style turf course, and that ties into why Europeans do very well when the Breeders' Cup is at Santa Anita.
Yeah, because, the downhill configuration there, and it's a salient point that Joaquin brings up. I mean, we're talking about bricks and mortar not being able to get the 1.5 miles, but why? I mean, I know he's never run it, but what indication does anyone get from his prior races at 1.25 miles distance, including 1.25 miles of the Arlington Million, which is a much stiffer 1.25 miles than most tracks because it's those big, wide, slightly wider turns, a slightly longer stretch than you get here. So the 1.5 miles here rides like 1.25 miles to me.
We were relaying to you earlier. We had a chance before we came on our set by the paddock to talk to trainer Shug McGahee, who loved the surroundings here at Santa Anita and excited to be participating in the Breeders' Cup. He's with Michelle Yu.
Joined by Shug McGahee. But the most important question, Shug, I have to ask is, what'd you have for breakfast?
A little bit of everything. I had eggs and ham and pancakes, and I was hungry.
Code of Honor shipping in here yesterday. How did he ship, and what's your plan leading up to Saturday?
He seemed to ship fine. It's a long day shipping out here and this and that, but he got in here at 4-something yesterday afternoon, I think, and, all was good last night. And we just took him out and galloped him a little bit this morning. He seemed to be feeling really good, so, that's all we're going to do. I'm just going to try to keep him as fresh as I can through the week and see what happens when we go over there.
Post position draw was yesterday. You guys drew the outside. What are your thoughts about the post?
Doesn't worry me. Probably a good post for us. I mean, they start at the head of the stretch, so there's a long way, and Johnny can kind of watch and see what's going on. We can keep him out of trouble and see what happens.
Well, thanks, Sugar. I want to recommend the coffee. The lattes are amazing here.
Oh, they.
Got to catch up with Sugar here at the Breakfast Marquee, guys.
I got to make a visit.
I know.
I mean, I'm not a real drip coffee guy because I like it kind of watered down with the foamy milk and that. So a latte right now would be pretty nice.
Let's go after the show. Do you got to go anywhere? You
Yeah,
got to
I
head
do.
back? You got to back behind the orange curtain for Simon
Got to
Bray.
work out. Got to do my 5/8.
Yeah, I'm going to work at having some ham, some pancakes. I love what Sugar
Working
McGee
those
is
eyelids
doing.
closed.
Yeah,
No.
faux show. Okay, you're doing a blowout?
Yeah,
Larry?
I got a
Is that
blowout.
what it is?
Well, we're only 4 days away from the big race. So I got to go and do a little blowout.
I got to get a Brazilian blowout, get the hair ready for both Friday and Saturday. That is Selcord out on the track for trainer John Sadler. His barn has had a very busy morning. We'll continue with our busy morning. It's breakfast at the Breeders' Cup presented by TVG. More coming up right after this. Live look at Clocker's Corner right next to the breakfast marquee. People taking in the beautiful day here at Santa Anita and the final preparations for mini horses in the Breeders' Cup.
If we ever do this again, I'm saying right now, and I know Breeders' Cup management is listening.
Okay.
We're going to pick this whole setup
and go over there
and drop it right at Clocker's Corner.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
'Cause,
At whatever cost.
I'm with you.
At whatever cost.
I want to be in the hive of that activity.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Plus, it's easier to get the free food. Gabby?
Here with Ed Crisford, the son and assistant to Simon Crisford, sending out Ali in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. How did this horse ship over here?
He shipped him really, really good. His temperament is, I mean, he's such a dude. He's just so relaxed. You can literally just do anything with him. So, he shipped him really good, and we just had him out on the track this morning, and just had a little jog around the outside, and he just took it all in, and he was like an old pro.
So he took to it well. We were just mentioning before we came on air, it's very quiet back here at the quarantine barn, and then it's just madness ensues as you get closer to the track. Did he handle that well?
Yeah, I mean, he, as I said, he is a very relaxed horse. Ryan, his rider, said he thought he had been here his whole life. He just walked around here and ears pricked and was loving it. So he took it all in, and very good.
I mean, this horse has been pretty good against Group 2 company in England. Talk a little bit about the Norfolk Stakes, especially it was a special accomplishment considering his form going into the race.
Yeah, so he had never won a race. He'd only ever had one run up at Ripon, which is, in the north of England, and he finished second that day. And but he had always been working or breezing really nice at home, and so we thought we'll take our chance and run him in the Norfolk. And obviously he won that really well, and put him on to bigger and better things. But I mean, it's, that was a winning you're in for this race, the sprint here. So we always thought, in the back of our minds, we would come here.
What are some concerns, I would say, because he's only run on a straight course. He's never had the opportunity to make that left-handed turn. And also the pace of the race could be a little bit quicker. Are those concerns for you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as you said, he's never, ever run round a bend. So we actually did take him to a track in England called Wolverhampton, which is a tight, sort of same style as Santa Anita, really. And we breezed him around the bend, and we got him to switch leads, and just everything that you need to do here to run a big race. And he handled that really, really well. Obviously, it is alien to him. We know that, but I'm hoping we've prepared him well enough for it. The pace of the race again is going to be different for him, and also just little things like in the stalls. The stalls handlers get up above him, and so we've done a bit of stalls work at home like that. So we just tried to prepare him, leave no stone unturned, really.
And what about the firm going? Is he a horse that generally prefers it, or can he handle really anything?
He's one on good to soft ground and good to firm ground. So yeah, he's very versatile like that. I think we always thought he wanted this sort of ground. So I think he'll be fine on it. What's
the next couple of days in terms of training look like for him?
I mean, obviously all his preparations sort of done already. So the race on Friday, I think he'll just go out into the track and get onto that grass and have a few easy canters on the grass, and that'll be it really, and just tick into the race.
All right, thank you so much. Great insight.
Brilliant. Thanks so much.
All right, and there you have it. A little bit more information from Ali as we stand outside of the quarantine barn. We're not allowed in there, guys.
When I was back in Newmarket, I was pretty good friends with his dad, Simon Crisford. Ed was probably about this big.
It's amazing, but it's you watch these family operations. Yeah. Riley Mott being a good example of that as well.
Exactly, same thing. And Simon Crisford, longtime advisor to Godolphin and Sheikh Mohammed, broke out on his own a few years ago as a trainer and had very good success. Good support from the Maktoum family as well. And Ed now taking over the reins there a little bit.
And as we told you about earlier, Omaha Beach is going to have the key word of the day, blowout. Omaha Beach's blowout coming up when we return. Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, presented by TVG.
Guys, I'm walking right now with Taylor, who is the normal gallop boy for Omaha Beach as we're going out for Omaha to blow out. Taylor, I know you don't like to get too far away from him. What are your thoughts going into this final move?
Definitely a lot of nerves going on right now, but he's been training really good up to this point, so last little blowout, and hope for the best. We got a good draw, and I guess everything else relies on him.
What do you want to see from him today, and is it hard for you to watch him from an outsider's perspective?
It's definitely hard, but I know I'm not fit to be a work rider, so I know Nestor, he does a really good job working horses, so I just want to see a really relaxed, nice little blowout and come back good from it.
Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you.
Guys?
Look, everyone who works around horses are connected to these amazing animals. But with Omaha Beach, the team has kind of really worn their heart on their sleeve for everyone to see, including trainer Dyck Mandela. This horse has been through so much. They got so close to being the favorite for the Kentucky Derby. They could not ultimately go, but now they're making up for a lot of lost time, and they are really attached to this horse, and Omaha Beach has delivered when they've asked.
Yeah, I think it underscores, we kind of lose track. And, you know, when you do this day in, day out, and you watch, you know, and cover horse racing day in, day out as a fan or within the industry, you become a little blasé about how much work goes on behind the scenes and how gratifying it is from the standpoint of connections. Getting a horse like this who you know has talent and nursing them through a campaign, scratching whatever it was 48 hours before the Kentucky Derby, undergoing a throat procedure, a tieback procedure there, and bringing him back. I mean, it's a win already, regardless of what happens this weekend, just from that standpoint. But, yeah, there's a lot of vested interest. And you can see the exercise rider, he rides that horse. He's going out personally to watch the horse work. He wants to see exactly what he does.
Omaha Beach is the morning line favorite, the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, and you will watch him live here on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup with his final blowout for that big race on Saturday. Omaha Beach, one of your top 3-year-olds here in the United States. They do have some renovation that is going on now that it's very busy out on the training track, so we'll rejoin the action a little bit trackside here in just a moment. And just a reminder about TVG, as we are the official wagering partner of the Breeders' Cup. No better way to play the Breeders' Cup over that 2 days than through the leader in advanced deposit wagering, TVG. And we're so sure that you're going to love it. We're offering a money-back special to TVG account holders. Get all the details. This will be for November 1st, Friday, Future Stars Friday, and then Saturday as well, the 2 championship days of racing. Go to tvg.com to find out more. TVG, the official wagering partner of the Breeders' Cup. And we continue on here with breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, sitting just off the paddock here. And Simon, yesterday, the post position draw, and it was asked on our QA at the Cup, who got hurt the most by the post draw. We talked a lot about a lot of horses drawing the rail, some big name horses, Kofefe being one of them, and the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Who do you think got the most difficult post draw yesterday of the big name horses?
In my opinion, especially on how we covered this filly and mare on the show yesterday about how she doesn't like being in behind horses and doesn't like to take that spray, that kickback of dirt from other horses, it would be Paradise Woods in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. I mean, if you could think of one post that one horse in the 14 races didn't want, I think it's Paradise Woods and drawing the number 1 hole. I mean, because she has to break sharp and go, and if she does that, well, that's good for her. But if she is a step slow, she's going to be in a situation that she doesn't want to be in. And we've showed you what happens when she gets in behind horses.
And at Midnight Bisou, on the other hand, she got a perfect draw, and she is the morning line favorite at 6-5. And as Simon was mentioning earlier, most likely the shortest price favorite along the way in all the Breeders' Cup races. And we expect her to be bet down from 6-5 to odds on. Dunbar Road amongst the 3-year-old fillies, and then Paradise Woods, whom you mentioned, is officially our second choice at 5-1. And then Blue Prize drawn all the way to the outside. And interesting that a lot of horses who were in last year's Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff are back to contest it again. Wildcat, as we mentioned, Monomoy Girl got the win last year, but you got Wildcat back, Midnight Bisou back. You get Blue Prize back, and so that speaks a lot. And then there is the speed of Serengeti Empress. What to do with her? Talk about a campaign where she's been in a variety of spots all over the place, but there's no doubt how fast she is. Can her speed take her enough away from Midnight Beezer that she could take the field gate to wire? Your Kentucky Oaks winner, Serengeti Empress?
Oh, and Secret Spice in there as well, pace setter. She needs the lead, Serengeti Empress. Her last 3 starts, she's been drawn post 1. She gets to the outside here this weekend.
Track maintenance going on as they are grooming the track and getting set for a number of horses to come back out onto the track, including Omaha Beach. We'll be updating the dry race boards with the workout times. Michelle, you working on that during this short timeout. Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup presented by TVG. For a record 10th time, the Breeders' Cup returns to Santa Anita, and with good reason. You look around here, and you can't imagine a better venue. And a lot of people arriving here for the first time. You know, even some of the jockeys are just now making their ways over here.
Yeah, just looked on social media. If you're following the Breeders' Cup Twitter feed, that's at Breeders' Cup. Frankie Dettori's on the plane right now, on the way to Los Angeles, and he's tweeting out a little video from inside the airplane.
And our trash can camera has caught trainer Todd Pletcher on the phone.
He doesn't look too down in the dumpsters, does he?
And he shouldn't be.
I mean, he should be happy, right?
He should. Well played. Todd Pletcher, one of our top trainers here in America, but top trainers from all over the world are here. Hall of Fame trainer Dyck Mandela has Omaha Beach out on the racetrack here, ready for a final blowout. So a lot of these horses getting ready to head back out onto the track after the maintenance that has been done here. And look at that crowd.
That's a great shot.
Yeah. Down by Clocker's Corner and Breakfast Marquee.
That's not a permanent venue, by the way, that marquee. That's a tent that's been erected for the week. Trainer shook me. There's one of the things he said. I mean, he goes, this venue is so great. And he goes, how about that breakfast marquee? That's a tremendous tent. And I think on Breeders' Cup Day, that'll be a viewing area as well. That's tickets you can purchase to go in there as well. Look at that.
Yeah, and thanks to the sponsors who have made that possible.
Yeah, that's Windstar Farm, and you can see the Breeders' Cup and associated sponsors there, Phasic Tipton. And one thing we must, this was an idea that was brought to the fore by celebrity chef Bobby Flay and then Breeders' Cup board director Barry Weisbord. And it was their idea to institute this several years ago, and it's been a huge, huge success.
Yeah, the Breeders' Cup, and that's what I love about, we talk about track partners like Keeneland. They could just do what they do and stay with their brand and never change, and they'd have success. But they always have something different each time you come to that meet, be it in the spring or the fall, using Keeneland as an example. And the Breeders' Cup has done the same thing. It was a successful formula from the beginning, but they've changed it each and every time, each year, with nuances like that, or even in the racing schedule as well with Future Stars Friday. Great credit to the Breeders' Cup to keep moving the event forward.
Got to stay fresh, Todd.
I agree with you.
Fresh. Keep it fresh.
Moving forward is United for trainer Dyck Mandela, aside from having Omaha Beach out on the racetrack for the preparations for the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. United getting ready for the Longines Breeders' Cup Turf.
Another Richard Mandela runner. Of course, he took this race with that famous 20-minute photo finish with Johar against High Chaparral. United, owned by L&J Foxwoods. They've got major players this weekend with Kofefi. Relatively new owners to the game. Only been in the business a handful of years and had tremendous success. Got a great operation, aided by Alex Solis Jr., who's managing them, and they've done a great job with horses spread around the country. And United, another one, a horse who was waylaid a little bit at Del Mar. Remember, there was some temperature, there was a fever going through the barn area at Del Mar, and he couldn't make his intended start in the Del Mar handicap at Del Mar. So he sidestepped that race and came straight to the John Henry Turf here, where he finished third as the beaten favorite. Probably needed that race, and I expect a move forward here. But again, he's going to need to step forward. He's not a graded stakes winner, yet he's trying to take down the Breeders' Cup Turf.
And as far as the temperatures, it's warmed up since this morning, but still remains very nice on the cool side. We were probably dipping in below 50 when we started out the day, and now we're up to probably around 63 degrees and very comfortable out here.
Thankfully, Pony Express, I mean, we try to get these jackets by air, by rail, by sea, but Pony Express got them here today. And perfectly timed, actually, because it's the coolest day of the thing. Might have to make the transition to the vest, too.
Yeah,
because we can do that.
And great credit to TVG Management working with Breeders' Cup to get us our on-air wear, what you're seeing today. And then, as Simon mentioned, a vest. We've got a hat and even a polo shirt as well. And when you come out to the Breeders' Cup, definitely stop by the merchandise tents that they have out here. And they had a line, if you saw it earlier in the week, Michelle, you showing you that they have a Zenyatta line to commemorate her 10th anniversary of winning the Breeders' Cup Classic out here at Santa Anita. Watching United breaking off for this workout to prepare for the Breeders' Cup Turf. I mean, a lot going on here in a workout like this because you're conducting it over the dirt. It's for a turf race. We've covered that. But you're also going a mile and a half. Where do you even begin to prepare a horse for a mile and a half? I'd imagine there are a lot more different approaches to prepare a horse for a mile and a half on the grass than maybe any other distance or circumstance in our sport.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's all done. The work is all done to get the mile and a half trip. That's behind us. He's had a race, and you're not going to get this horse ready, the week of the Breeders' Cup for a mile and a half. One, you've got to have the horse and the pedigree to do it. That's the key, and then you just get him fit. But you can see here, we've seen a myriad of top-class horses this week and all the different actions, and you can tell why this horse is a grass horse. He's kind of got that long, high stride, high knee action, we like to say, and it just keeps going. And he comes from off the pace, and distance is his friend. The further they go, the better he's going to get.
United for trainer Dyck Mandela finishing up his major works here for the Longines Breeders' Cup Turf. Last time out was third in the John Henry Turf Cup behind Acclimate, who was second, Cleopatra Stike getting the win that day. But this would be considered a significant upset if United were to get the win, a horse that to date has not won a graded stakes race. Son of Giants Causeway out of the Pulling Punches mare Indy Punch was bred by Rosemont Farm in the Commonwealth of Kentucky and campaigned for L&J Foxwoods. Dyck Mandela, the trainer. That's United finishing up his final work before the Longines Breeders' Cup Turf.
Same sire as Bricks and Mortar, Giants Causeway.
And now much anticipated Omaha Beach with his blowout, his final blowout before the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. How much do you think his effort last time out in the Sprint Championship here at Santa Anita took out of him? That was quite a fight he had with Chancelot down to the wire.
It certainly was. I mean, it was a huge effort. It was a career best number, on biospeed figures, if you follow that. And you just hope there's no sign of regression. He's had a month to recover. It was a first start in a long time. But he's come back with some sharp works. He looks tremendous. He's walked by here every morning. I've seen him with the crew from the Mandela barn. And, you just hope. I don't know what. I'm not a speed figure player, but a lot of the guys that follow the speed figures could tell you, he's going to bounce back or he's not. He's going to regress. I'm not sure. But I think looking at him and all what we've seen, I don't see any indication of that.
Omaha Beach, after taking the Santa Anita Sprint Championship, that was a second Grade 1 win for him on the year. If he were to take the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, that would give him 3 Grade 1 wins on the year, and he might not be done. Remember, there are opportunities in his own 3-year-old division with the Malibu out here the day after opening day. So this idea of the Eclipse Award and these wins and where it could take you, it's wide open in the 3-year-old division. So he would actually be one of those leaders after a win in the Big Ass Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. And then obviously Code of Honor in the Breeders' Cup Classic, what he would do. So a lot is going to play out between really the Breeders' Cup right until the end of this year. And you're one of the voters for the Eclipse Awards.
And I brought up earlier this morning, we had a meeting earlier before the show. I was talking about Maximum Security. He's coming off a win recently. It was a Grade 2 or Grade 3 effort. So, I mean, it's not going to have a huge impact in for a year in voting. But if he goes to, say, the Cigar Mile, beats older horses, and then comes out here for the Malibu, I mean, that's 2 key Grade 1s. And here is Omaha Beach breaking off, and this is what a blowout is. Just an easy, looks like 3/8. He's just left the 3/8 pole there, and that's what we put right there, that green and white pole. That's what we predicted, that he would probably go 3 furlongs.
And he is an aggressive workhorse. He can turn in some bullet workouts, meaning the fastest workout of the day at that particular distance. In fact, he had such a work on October 23rd when he went 5 furlongs, 59-3 here at Santa Anita, the fastest of 34 horses working that day at the distance. Doesn't appear to be going too fast here, but obviously within himself. Omaha Beach, son of Warfront, out of the Seeking the Gold mare, Charming, bred by the Charming Syndicate in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and races for Fox Hill Farms. You're looking at Omaha Beach live, finishing up a blowout in his final major work before the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile.
I put the clock on him here. I got to start watching. I'm timing this off the monitor here, so believe me, it's far from accurate. But my guess would be I got him 24-2, 24-3 the last quarter of a mile, motionless. That is, I mean, and you said he, and I agree with you, he didn't look to be going that fast. But as we've talked about, that's a mark of a good horse. When you don't think they're going that fast, and you look down at the watch and they go considerably quicker than what you visually thought they were doing. In my opinion, he was doing that. I don't have the official splits, but yeah, that's a perfect last blowout, as we like to say, just to open up the lungs, take the edge off of him so he doesn't hurt himself between now and Saturday. And then those energy levels, they won't dip. So you have a big workout 3 weeks ago. That's why everyone does the big workout 3 weeks before a big race, because, you put that strong work in them, the energy levels will dip, and then you have to build them back up again. But all this does is sharpen them. It gets the endorphin levels up, and he'll be bouncing off the walls tomorrow, I guarantee you, if he's back at the barn.
The other mark of a good horse is being able to win at the top level of our sport in a variety of distances.
Yep.
Think about it. If he pulls off this win in the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, those 3 Grade 1 wins in a row, the 1 1/8 Arkansas Derby, and then off a layoff from April to October, the Grade 1 Santa Anita Sprint Championship over Chancelot, who is one of your favorites for the Breeders' Cup Sprint, and then a mile. So 6 furlongs, a mile, 1 1/8. If he could be a 3-time Grade 1 winner under those circumstances, says a lot. And then, Dyck Mandela kind of joking about it, but it was a lot of truth to it. He essentially said before the Santa Anita Sprint Championship, because there were a number of spots he could come back, he said, we had to make him a Grade 1 sprinter in 2 weeks' time. And he did that, and now he's trying to turn him into a Grade 1 Dirt Mile winner at the Breeders' Cup.
From looking forward to the day when he retires from a stallion standpoint. Oh,
sought after.
Yeah.
for sure.
I mean, you don't need any quotes from the trainer. You just put up, he's a Grade 1 winner at 6, a mile 8, and if he wins this race in a mile. Enough said.
Taking a look at Imperial Hint, who's one of the top sprinters in the world, and he's going to have his matchup once again with Matoli. He conquered him just a couple of starts ago for Matoli, and Imperial Hint came back with what was a thrilling race against Firenze Fire last time.
Yeah, I believe we bumped into Zoe Cadman, who's a broadcaster here at Santa Anita.
Does a
tremendous
very good job
work for XBTV, and she also clips a lot of horses. She's, obviously got a great background in the horse industry. And we were walking out yesterday, and she said she was about to clip this horse, trace clip. That means shave the hair off the body.
How'd she do? How's the horse look?
It looks fine. I mean, I could hardly tell.
Where'd it go, Zoe?
Yeah.
Good job.
I mean, if she did, she got the number 1 blade on there and got it high and tight.
And Imperial Hint, what do you think about his rematch with Matoli? Who's got the edge?
That's a good question. I mean, this race is so close between those two. As I'm pulling up the draw position, see what post position he got. I can't remember off the top of my head with Imperial Hint which draw he got. Let's take a look at it here.
Imperial Hint taking the Grade 1 Vosburg last time out over Firenze Fire, and you look at
Post 9.
Post 9, and previously he's drawn post positions 3 in smaller fields. Last time out in the Vosburg, as we mentioned, in the Vanderbilt prior to that. He's also shown some versatility. He took the field gate to wire last time out in the Vosburg, sat patiently with a ridiculously fast pace in the Vanderbilt before running away from the field.
I mean, is that one of those races, the Vanderbilt, is like his big race that he can't go back to? Kind of like Chancelot? I mean, that was a huge number that day.
Well, he set a track record in the course of it. Imperial Hint going 6 furlongs in 107.4 in the Vanderbilt. And left in his wake, as you mentioned, was Matoli, who was ultimately third in there.
Yeah, Matoli was third. And that was back on the 27th of July. And we're taking a look at it. I mean, he just ran this field into the ground here. Diamond Oops was in there as well. But he did come back out of that race, taking most of the summer off, and of course won the Vosburg. I mean, on his day, he's as big a threat as anybody in this race.
107.4,
yep.
And just thriving with every stride. And when you see him up close, he's a compact sprinter. And, you look at Matoli and how amazing he looks, his physical gifts, looks like a sprinter. But, Imperial Hint, a lot in that small frame. Matoli is the 9-5 morning line favorite.
You got to remember, Matoli whacked the gate coming out of the starting gate that day, so that might have, had a lot to say for his lackluster performance, finishing third, well beaten 7 lengths.
The Breeders' Cup Sprint scheduled as race number 8 on the Saturday program here at Santa Anita. Gabby?
Todd, thank you. Something pretty cool is happening right here. We're taking a look at Joseph O'Brien's horses, and we just saw Unforgettable and Iridessa come off the track. Now, because turf works or turf training does end at 9:45, the crew was a little bit concerned that they wouldn't have time to go all the way back to the quarantine barn for the riders to switch on to the next 2 and go out to the turf course. So they're actually right here at the gap, and they're hopping off their mounts and hopping back on the other 2 mounts. Air Force Jet is one of them, and Alligator Alley is the other one. So a little bit of a switcheroo here, guys, as the other 2, Iridessa and the other one, will be heading back to the quarantine barn right now, and these 2 will be making their way out to the turf in just a few moments.
Thank you, Gabby, and you'll see it live here on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, presented by TVG. Cameras taking you right into the action. And a lot of it going on here this morning.
Aiden's Army. Whenever you go to an international event, whether it's, go to Dubai for the World Cup, go to the, Pegasus Breeders' Cup or whatever, when these horses come out, he doesn't have as big a contingent this year, but they come out as a group. And usually, these horses, once they see the track for the first time, sometimes they get a little warm. We're accustomed to seeing that, but they're behaving patiently at the gap there as they make their way out into the track for the first time.
And going in the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile is Ambassadorial, who will be stepping onto the dirt for the first time in his career. Son of elusive quality, out of the Discreet Cat Mare Tactfully, bred by Darley in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Has been on synthetic surfaces, and in fact has been in Korea as well, but first time onto a dirt track.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge task for him, especially in this race when you've got horses like Omaha Beach and Improbable he's taken on. That's a tough task. Good luck, Ambassadorial.
Ambassadorial out on the track here at Santa Anita, getting ready for the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. You know, a horse that's been kind of left out of the conversation, I think, you know, this big showdown between Omaha Beach and Improbable is Coalfront. Coalfront took the Godolphin Mile at Maidan back in March, came back in the Met Mile and set the pace, and then last time out got back on a winning track at Parks. Coalfront's speed should be respected in the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Michelle?
You guys might know his voice, but maybe not his face. I'm joined by Kurt Becker, the race caller at Keeneland, and we're going to do some more trivia. He couldn't get away from me fast enough. I kind of hemmed him in right here. Are you ready for this trivia?
Let's do it.
All right, first question. What trainer has the most Breeders' Cup wins?
I'm going to say D. Wayne Lucas.
Ding, ding, ding. All right, second question. What jockey has the most Breeders' Cup wins?
I'm going to say Mike Smith with 26.
You are amazing. These are too easy for you. True or false? No Derby winner has ever won the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Oh, now that is false.
And bonus points if you can tell me one.
American Pharaoh.
There we go. Let's see. How many times has Santa Anita hosted the Breeders' Cup?
This will be a record 10th time.
I feel like you've done this before. What else? Okay, here's a tough one. Besides America, which country has produced the most Breeders' Cup winners? And I mean bred in this country.
Ooh, besides America, I'm going to say Ireland.
Oh my gosh, seriously? This is unbelievable. It's like you practice. Did someone give you these questions?
And I keep hoping that you're going to stop while I'm ahead.
I got one more for you. No, I got two more. No, three. What is the winningest Breeders' Cup post position?
Oh, okay. This is where the ship goes down. I'm going to guess. I'm going to say 5.
It's close. It's 4.
Okay.
I'll give you that as like a kind of an asterisk, right? What is the largest winning margin in a Breeders' Cup, and who was it?
Ooh, the largest winning margin in a Breeders' Cup. I'm drawing a blank. If I had to guess, I'm going to guess Arazi.
Nope, it was inside information.
Oh.
13.5 lengths.
I told you we should have stopped while I was ahead.
Okay, one more. Has there ever been a dead heat in the Breeders' Cup?
Yes, there has. And if I remember correctly, it was the Breeders' Cup Turf. It was here, 2003. And I'm going to say Johar and High Chaparral.
Ding, ding, ding. We ended on a good note.
Love it.
I have a great bag of goodies here. I'm going to let you pick. Bring my goodies over here, Crystal. Look at this huge bag. I have there's a chapstick. I have some Breeders' Cup labeled gum. Nice. I've got some free PPs and a hat. So dig your hand right in there, Kurt Becker, and pick out what you like.
You know what? I'll just reach in and grab a hat. I love it.
Go. Breeders'
I love
Cup
it.
hat.
Awesome.
Breeders' Cup trivia right here, guys.
Kurt Becker is such a good guy and a fantastic announcer, the only announcer that Keeneland Racecourse has ever had. We have an announcement you're going to want to stick around for. It's actually disappointing news to come out of the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Again, very important announcement when we come back here on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup presented by TVG. Well, as you've seen with our shows, Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, they are fluid shows. We have horses coming on and off the track, news breaking as it relates to the Breeders' Cup. And before we went to our last break, we received some disappointing news regarding the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile, because if you watched him in the morning, you knew he was one of the horses to beat. And the news is now coming out that Maxfield will have to scratch from the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Again, we can confirm Maxfield will not go in the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile. We had a chance to talk to Brendan Walsh just a couple of days ago. They obviously had the post position draw yesterday. This has to be a really tough moment for them.
I mean, this is just awful for him. I mean, we spent a lot of time with him yesterday. You and I have seen Maxfield work on this show. We've seen him walk by here a couple of times. I mean, he's just an impressive-looking individual, but I mean, it's just so sad. I feel sorry for the connections. And, I mean, he was my standout of the whole weekend. I mean, but take that aside for the moment. I mean, it's just the health and welfare and safety of the horses. There's a lot of protocols put in place here at Santa Anita. There's going to be a team of 20 veterinarians. These horses are checked independently at least 3 or 4 times in the 10 days leading up to the Breeders' Cup. And all those safety nets are in place. And whatever injury it was, we're going to catch up and get a statement from Brendan Walsh here momentarily from Gabby Goddard, hopefully, and we'll know. But a guy like him, he probably picked it up without the vets, finding it for him because he's such a good horseman. But there's a lot of safety protocols and safety nets in place to prevent something, from happening, poorly from happening. So I'm glad we caught it. He will fight another day, hopefully, and we'll look forward to seeing him in 2020.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. There's a whole 3-year-old season ahead for these top 2-year-olds. And like we said, we are tracking down trainer Brendan Walsh to get an official comment. Joining us now on the set, a long time with the Daily Racing Form, Marcus Hirsch, one of the best opinions out there, and he's been on the backside. Just your quick reaction to Maxfield now having to get out of the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Well, I mean, I know Brendan a little bit because I work at Fairgrounds, and I've talked to him a lot over the years. And I think he's a fine horseman, up and coming. His stable's really come together and is ascended, I think, right now. It was great that he got this horse for Godolphin, and I mean, I think he's a really fine horse. I look forward to seeing him back next year. Brendan's going to do the right thing. I'm sure he's really disappointed, but he still has Vitology in Friday's Juvenile Turf, who I think is a live chance in there too. So maybe that will make up for the obviously huge disappointment of losing one of the key contenders in the Juvenile.
Marcus, with your perspective and knowing a lot of these horses, watching them campaign over the course of the year, we wanted to bring you on to talk about the chaos that is Horse of the Year. Can you remember a year like this where at one point Matoli was a candidate for Horse of the Year and he's in the sprint division? Bricks and Mortar is a candidate for Horse of the Year. He only races on the turf. And Midnight Bisou is a candidate for Horse of the Year, and she only races in the distaff division. I can't remember a year like this in quite some time. What about you?
Well, even last year, though, remember, Accelerate was kind of a narrow winner in the end. So, I mean, obviously the default category is older male dirt route horse. And that is the traditional American Horse of the Year, whoever's best at that. It's just that we don't know who's best at that this year. I mean, it could be McKinsey. I know McKinsey is the poster boy for the biggest race on the biggest weekend, outside of the Triple Crown. But is McKinsey that kind of horse? I mean, I'm not totally convinced. I think he's an awesome talent and very good at what he does. We're going to see if he can go 1.25 miles, and we can see if he can be a little more consistent. So when you kind of cut that division out, I think you leave, it's wide open. So then next you go to turf, like older male turf horse. And we've got one of those. So if Bricks and Mortar wins this race, the Breeders' Cup Turf, I think he's Horse of the Year. Is that a weird opinion?
Well, here, I want to say to our audience as well, both of you do vote for the Eclipse Award. So as we have this conversation, you're kind of giving us an indication what you're looking for and what you're ultimately going to vote for. And Simon, I think you would agree with Marcus. That is not a weird approach to it, to say that Bricks and Mortar, having raced only on the turf, could be Horse of the Year for an American award like this.
Why not? I mean, look, we're in an era in American racing where we've seen that prevalence of turf racing in the last several years.
Well, yeah.
And why not? And we vote, at least I do, I'm not sure, it's a body of work, right? And so far, I don't care whether it's on synthetic, grass, dirt, sand, whatever you want, he has the best body of work in the calendar year thus far, and it would be capped off with a win in the Breeders' Cup Turf. So I think there's no reason not to vote for him.
Well, it's important to note regarding turf horses in America, and you just alluded to it about the number of opportunities. Bricks and Mortar has done something that no horse has ever done in American racing with a number of 7-figure wins he's already had this year, and that's because they exist.
Right.
I mean, the Pegasus World Cup Turf did not exist very recently. So if you can get a horse that can win that, win the Manhattan, win the Arlington Million, I mean, that already he's put together a historically kind of significant campaign. And then if he capped that off with a win in the Breeders' Cup Turf, I don't think it would even be so much like, oh, we have to find an alternative. I mean, I think he would be a very worthy winner. That would be just an awesome, awesome campaign.
I would agree with you. Regardless of what happens in the Classic, whether a McKinsey wins it, I think there's still a strong argument for him because a lot of the time with 3-year-olds, when we're talking about Devon Horse, they only ran the first half of the year. They only ran the second half of the year. He's had a true campaign from January
to November.
To November. That's exactly right. And I think that leads us to the discussion. And then you start bringing in 3-year-old of the year. And that's kind of the same. It's a mirror image. To me, I thought about this last night, Marcus, and maybe I'm going out in left field here, but Maximum Security just won. I mean, he won a one-turn race. But I think there's an argument to be said if he wins the Cigar Mile and then comes out here for the Malibu. I think that gets lost sometimes. The voting ends December 31st.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you throw him into the picture back again?
We have to see what happens.
Yeah.
Can we backtrack 1 second?
Yeah.
We would be remiss not to mention Midnight Bisou,
Yeah.
I think, for
Yeah.
Horse of the Year. Because if Bricks and Mortar doesn't win,
oh, for sure,
then she is absolutely, I think, neck and neck. And now, historically speaking, the knee-jerk response is she didn't step outside her division. She's only raced against horses of her own sex throughout the year. And that's a fair point. But the depth and breadth of her campaign this year and what she's done to win one-turn races with a fast pace like the Phipps and to come from last to beat a really good horse in Elate at Saratoga. She also started in January and has hit every spot. If she could cap off that season with a Breeders' Cup Distaff win, she would be a worthy Horse of the Year in my opinion too.
This, I think, off the top of my head, would be the 6th different racetrack she's run at in 2019 as well. That's another
Not
plus.
too many Horses of the Year have run at Sam Houston, I don't believe.
Right.
But getting back to the 3-year-olds, Code of Honor right now is in the driver's seat,
Sure.
I think.
He's the most consistent 3-year-old.
Well, and even his credentials are a tiny bit soft, I think, for a above par 3-year-old horse, a 3-year-old champion, because he ran okay in the Derby, didn't win great. And then he didn't. That was it. That was it for the 3 biggest races in the division,
but
right?
There's people out there going, wait a second, Omaha Beach could get a 3rd Grade 1 win in a row if he takes the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. And then you look at that. Before that, he beat Chancelot in the Santa Anita Sprint Championship. So mile and 8th Arkansas Derby, 6 furlongs mile. Shouldn't he be in that conversation for best 3-year-old?
He could be. I mean, it's true the year goes through the end.
Yeah.
Through December 31st. He could also come back in a race like the Cigar Mile. Or the Malibu.
The Malibu's right in his backyard.
Yeah.
Mandela just walks him right over there.
See, but then 3-year-olds in sprint races, now we're really going into uncharted territory to a certain extent.
But it's that type of year,
I know.
don't you think?
So I do agree with you about Maximum Security. What a weird case, because how do you treat his Derby?
Yeah.
I treat it as I'm not gonna rate it just on where he was placed. I'm gonna rate it on how he actually performed in the day, and that was fabulously. I mean, he ran a tremendous race, and I've been a little bit skeptical of him. But to add the Haskell, and then I don't want to underrate his performance last weekend, which I thought was fabulous.
Yeah.
He was actually, when 3-year-olds run against older horses for the first time, they're supposed to get weight.
Right.
This was a handicap. He was the top weight in the horse. He was giving weight to the older horses. Now, are these the best older horses in the world? No, but they're a solid group of older graded stakes horses. He was drawn on the rail, so he had to outsprint the horses to lead. And he dusted him under a hand ride, which suggests that he's got more in him for the rest of the year.
I want to pick up on a point you mentioned. It's been a year of disqualifications. Maximum Security. You're going to take his effort at face value with a slight asterisk. What do you do with Code of Honor in the same situation in the Jockey Club, getting DQ'd and put up?
Well, in that case, wouldn't you say? I mean, he was heading. It was right there. I mean, if he didn't win, we're so wins with a Z. I mean, that's what it's all about. But I like to rate performance. To me, Lou, you can have a great loss,
right?
And in that case, what's the difference? I mean, it's a Zot. So he ran a winning race whether he's put up or not. So I mean, that was a fine effort. I mean, but Vino Rosso, I'm not going to demean him. He's had a fine campaign. He was very well managed to get that win. That was taken away on his resume, but he's probably, he's not going to be in the Horse of the Year conversation no matter what. I mean, that was not a huge signature win. He did step up and beat older horses. Now, let's see what Code of Honor can do in the Classic. If he wins, I think the deal is sealed.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Clips Award as it pertains to females on the grass, and you take a look at Uni and Got Stormy and them taking on the boys in the TVG Breeders' Cup Mile. What can their performances do to that division?
Nothing. This is a done deal.
Sister Charlie?
It's over and done.
Really?
Yeah. She's a winner. I mean, I don't think that even if she runs a poor race and finishes 5th by 7 lengths, I think she'll still be the champion.
This is why he's one of the great opinions in the industry and why he's been with the Daily Racing Forum for a long time. Marcus, always good to visit with you. Before you go, though,
yes, sir.
Is there a horse that you're really looking forward to betting over these 2 days? Have you formulated that opinion yet?
Really looking forward to betting. Well, I mean, Midnight Beast is short, but I think she's super solid in the distaff. I mean, I'm kind of on. I'm on the females bandwagon in the mile. I like both of the females, Uni and Got Stormy.
They've had great females have had a great.
Yes,
record
they
in
have
race.
9 times winning.
Yeah.
And I think I might prefer Uni, even though Got Stormy beat her Saratoga. There are a lot of really interesting European horses. I mean, there's just I still am digging, not to be a cop out, but I'm not going to come up with some obscure play that I'll go back and then regret tomorrow.
Thank you so much for the conversation.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
From the Daily Racing Forum. Unfortunately, our lead-in to Marcus was disappointing news as it relates to the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Hearing it here, and we are confirming that Maxfield is out and catching up with the trainer, Joaquin Jaime.
Brandon, we just saw the news reported by the Daily Racing Forum that Maxfield is out of the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile. What happened?
We came in this morning and we washed his poultice off and gave him a little jog up the street as we do, and he didn't look 100%. You know, so he's normally a very good moving horse. So we sent him out. We backed him up to the wire like we've been doing, and he wasn't quite right. He's not. Something's bothering him. You know, so we decided we'd bring him home and. You know, there's something going on. We're hoping it's just a foot. We can't see anything obvious right now, but we're hoping that it's just like a foot abscess or something like that, and just a small issue that we can get over. But unfortunately, it's happened right before the race, so we've no other option but to scratch. You know, but it's disappointing. But you know, he was always going to be our 3-year-old. So you know, we'll just get him back and get it taken care of, and look forward to next year.
When do you get him back to Kentucky now with this happening? Do you get him back earlier, or do you stay on the normal flight home that you had already planned?
No, he's very comfortable and all. I think we'll just send him back on Saturday morning with the others, and you know, we're going to do a little diagnostics maybe today and see if we can get a better idea of what's going on. But you know, if we can't figure it out, then we'll probably have a look. More of a look into it when we get back home, but I'm sure it's nothing major.
Sorry about the news, Brandon. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
I mean, one of the most cheerful persons you'll be around. You saw it with our coffee conversation him a couple of days ago. It's
pretty realistic, though.
Yeah,
I mean, he takes it for a young trainer. He takes it in his stride, and you know, he's a good horseman. I think he's realistic, and you know, if it is a foot abscess, and he's probably got a gut feeling about that these types of things usually are, you know, that usually a lameness issue in a horse won't, unless it's, you know, glaringly obvious, won't come to the surface for a couple of days or even, you know, several hours later, especially with a foot abscess. It's just a pocket of infection in the foot, and as it builds and builds, at some point it's going to release, and you'll get an abscess. He'll have the blacksmith do it, and they do a lot of diagnostic blocking where they numb the area where they think it is and see how he moves. But I think, you know, there's part of a relief for that. It's like, gosh, I'm glad, you know, this happened before the race, so we didn't run. Because sometime the morning of the race, you might not have picked this up if you just hand-walked him and then sent him out to the track in the afternoon. So this is good news for the long term. And like he said, he's thinking about the future.
Yeah, and Maxfield has a very, very bright future. Homebred for Godolphin. We get more reaction about this Maxfield scratch now with Gabby Gaudet.
Obviously, very, very disappointing news. Maxfield just recently announced by the Daily Racing Forum and Dave Grenig that Maxfield will not be participating in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Jimmy, what's the news and how is he doing right now?
Well, he's probably better than we are at the moment. He's back in the stall, had his breakfast, and back in his routine. Just very quickly, we don't know exactly, other than we know he's not 100%. He's not himself. He came out this morning, was slightly off in his right fore. Just so slight, but we went ahead and took him to track for a jog, and just he wasn't himself. So terrible timing. It's really a pretty easy call, and if he's not 100%, then he's just we'll wait for another day, and we'll let the dust settle here a little bit and try to figure out exactly what it is. It could be just something simple, a little bruise in his foot, but we'll work on that a little bit later. But no question that he won't be participating on Friday.
I mean, this is a really, basic question, but just your thoughts and your emotions about this moment right now.
Well, you really need to remove your emotions, truthfully, and think totally about the horse and everything. So you have to do that. So a little numb, but listen, he's done so much as a 2-year-old. We thought maybe a couple of races for him to figure out what racing was about. Here he is, undefeated, a Grade 1 winner. And quite frankly, we are just looking so forward to next year that we're going to make sure everything is in order to move forward. So big disappointment, bad timing, but we still have an extraordinarily talented horse.
Of course, looking ahead. Thank you so much for the time, Jimmy.
Thank you very much. You bet.
Under those difficult circumstances, for those connections to step up and talk to us, again, thank you.
But they've been in the game long enough to understand. So you have to remove yourself from that part of it.
You can just look across at one of the other shed rows and see the connections to Omaha Beach.
Yep.
And see how it can all work out. That patience can pay off, and many opportunities ahead for Maxfield, and we'll have any more information as it comes into us. We continue on with Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, presented by TVG, after this. Well, we got Future Stars Friday, but we got some youngsters out here on a Tuesday. Yeah.
Dodgers fans.
And fans of thoroughbred racing will assemble here at Santa Anita the 10th time they have hosted the Breeders' Cup this Friday and Saturday. Omaha Beach pointing towards the Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. And after his blowout this morning, catching up with his trainer, Michelle Yu.
Ready? I'm joined by Richard Mandela right now as we're overseeing Omaha Beach cooling out. Richard, what was your thoughts of his blowout?
Looked terrific. I'd scheduled it originally to do it tomorrow, 3 days ahead of the race, but I got to thinking of those strong works we put into him into the sprint, and I thought, boy, if he remembers that and jumps into one, I'll feel bad going 3 days out. So this morning I got here and changed it, and we went at 9 o'clock this morning, and he was like a baby. Shows how smart he is. He just turns on and off whenever you need.
Well, thanks for joining us, Richard.
My pleasure.
I gotta say, the only thing faster on this backside than Charlie Appleby might be Omaha Beach, guys.
Well, look, I mean, trainers like Dick Mandela and Bob Baffert and others are used to the media being around, but, there's a lot going on, and everyone tries to accommodate, so it's nice these trainers take time out.
That's another example that we've seen on this show in the last 24 hours of two trainers at the top of their game calling audibles at the last minute. You see how he had a plan? He goes, I was going to do it tomorrow, and then, as you go home, you leave the barn area after feed time at night. Your mind never switches off. You lay there and you wake up in the morning, you're like, you know what, I can't work him tomorrow. What if he jumps into the bridle and takes off? And Bob Baffert was alluding to that yesterday in our piece with him, where he was doing a lot of things by feel, choosing the distance to work when he got to the racetrack.
He changed riders, put JC Diaz aboard.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think the best trainers do that. Rather than stick, you've got to be fluid. You can't be rigid. And I think that goes for a lot of things, whether it's business. You've got to adapt to the situation. And I think the best trainers in this business make decisions from here, sometimes more often than here.
Yeah, when other sports have been invaded by analytics and kind of ruined the game, horse racing, it's not about analytics. It's about knowing your horses and being a quality horseman or woman. They are continuing to come on and off the racetrack.
Ollie's Candy.
Ollie's Candy. Much more coming up on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, presented by TVG. We've learned a lot, and so has Joaquin with Grooming Joaquin, thanks to trainer Dan Blacker, who's imparted his knowledge. We'd like to show you what it takes to work on the backside at any racetrack around the country.
So he's got the saddle on.
Right.
He's got the bandages on.
What are we doing today?
I mean, you got to put the bridle on, right? That's the last thing left.
Let's find out. And Grooming Joaquin.
A pretty simple bridle. It's a D-bit and the reins. Go in underneath, there you go. Okay. And put your hand over the top of her nose and kind of pat her a little bit. There you go.
Okay.
Okay, now just put the reins, take the reins only, and just loop it over her head. Right there.
Okay.
Okay, so then you want to take the bridle and pass it to your other hand.
This one?
Yes. There you go.
Okay, and this goes straight over her ears?
Yeah, but you're at the same time, hold it just in that hand. You want to now use this hand to put the bit in her mouth.
I got to open.
Some horses will just put it in, let you put it in.
Uh-huh.
So you want to hold her head and hold the bridle at the same time
right
with
here?
that hand, yeah.
Like that?
And now put the bit in her mouth with the other hand.
She wants no part of this.
There you go, you got it. She's doing it. There you go, it's in. Yeah, let me help. There you go.
Okay.
Okay, now just throw that over the ears. That one. In there. There you go.
Okay.
Okay, now you want to always have a hand, this hand, move to that rein. So you're always going to hold her because she's loose now.
Okay.
We're going to put the rings onto that, clip them onto that. There you go. Onto the top bit, There you go. That's it.
Okay.
Now put the reins up behind the irons. That's it. That looks good.
Right there?
Yeah.
And then
Now
the
do
throat
other
latch?
one. Throat latch, yeah.
Where does this go? Or connect? Oh, there it is.
There you go.
Gotcha. Right there. It's about a fist on the throat latch or so?
Yeah. Yeah, that looks good.
Right there?
Yeah. I'll put it in the keeper, and then we're ready to go.
So just the loose.
Yeah. Okay, now grab her, hold her by the bit, and we're going to just slowly just kind of bring her to the front of the stall. You got her. And now you get the snap, this guy here. Snap it onto the bit right there.
Right here?
And that's ready to go. She's ready to go to the track.
So we call this tacked up. She's ready to
tacked up, ready to go. Yeah.
All right.
Easy.
Grooming Joaquin, let's hope he doesn't have to do surgery on anybody anytime soon.
Right,
I was
exactly.
like, a little shaky there.
Yeah.
But it is tense. You want to get it right because the rider is relying on you if you prepared that horse.
Right, and then, the groom takes the horse up. He brings him out to the stall, gives him a couple of turns in the morning, the rider gets on. But I always used to say it's ultimately the rider's responsibility at the end of the day to check the equipment before they get on.
Yeah, just like the pilot walking around the plane and inspecting, make sure everything's
Yeah,
done right.
you want to get in a pilot. Yeah, it's fine. Just trust me. It's all
It's all
good.
good.
I
All
gassed
right.
it up.
Let's take it up.
Yep, I gassed it up.
See
The
how it
wheels are
goes.
working great. Believe me. Just fly. Take it up.
Behind us, we saw trainer Todd Pletcher leading a number of horses to the saddling area and out here in the paddock.
Yep. Got a big contingent schooling there right to our left here. He's just simulating the saddling process in the stalls there to our left. And it's getting much busier here in the morning.
And we see a lot of fans. People are going to be here Friday and Saturday. It's not a racing day today at Santa Anita, but a lot of fans here with their cameras taking pictures of what's going on. And you could be one of those fans. Some great locations where tickets are still available. Go to breederscup.com/tickets. For example, on Future Stars Friday, you could still be in front runner, Clocker's Corner, the trackside marquee, which we've been showing you. And then on Saturday, also a front runner available along with the grandstand. And then right across from our set is the Zenyatta Peacock Paddock. There's also infield opportunities. So many great places to take in the races at Santa Anita. And you can find out those opportunities, breederscup.com/tickets. Joaquin.
We've been talking about the many new faces to come here on the backside at Santa Anita. Blaine Wright is one of them. He brings in Anita Orr in the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Blaine, when did you guys get into town?
Got in yesterday afternoon. We left Golden Gate Fields about 5 a.m., and he was pretty much bedded down by 12:30 or so.
He's coming off an impressive 8-length victory on the turf course at Golden Gate Fields. You don't have many options up there for dirt. It's either synthetic or turf. Did you want to debut him on the grass?
Yeah, we were actually looking at a race at Del Mar, and he kind of pulled up a little funky behind on us one day, and we had to back off his training and get him right again, and which we did. And at that point, it was either Santa Anita or Golden Gate. Both races were on the grass, and we just chose to stay at Golden Gate.
And what about trying dirt for the first time? Of course, you wanted to go in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. You were on the outside looking in, didn't get into that field, but you are in the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile. What's your best guess how he's going to handle the main track?
Well, he certainly got over it good this morning. He's trained on it before in those in-training sales, and, at this point, I hope that's not an excuse for us. There's not a lot of options for a 2-year-old on the West Coast, per se, and he's ready to run. We looked at a couple things at Del Mar, and ultimately Mr. Redicop said if the horse is doing good, let's just take a shot and throw a rock at the moon, and maybe we'll hit it.
What do his plans look like the rest of the week going into race day on Friday?
He'll probably have a 2.5 mile gallop tomorrow in a light day before the day of the race, and other than schooling in the paddock and things, everything should just kind of work itself out and hopefully get there in one piece.
2.5 miles, is that normal for him?
That's very normal gallop for him.
Blaine, appreciate the time. Good luck in the Juvenile.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
I like that line, throwing a rock at the moon. You got to take your shot. You got to be in it to win it, as the cliche goes. And looking ahead to the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile, obviously the big news coming out that Maxfield is scratching out, and that has changed the attitude of a lot of connections, because now that big 3 is down to a big 2. But again, scratch Maxfield. That information's so new. We haven't even been able to change the graphic yet. And you wonder if they might change the morning line a little bit, because Dennis's Moment is an 8-5 morning line favorite. 8 rings is 2-1, but Maxfield was the third choice at 3-1. So they might be adjusting that morning line as well. Now a field of 8 in the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile, part of Future Stars Friday. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf and a very special visit from a trainer who just got here last night. We'll be back with more Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup after this. Welcome back to a Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, brought to you by TVG. Looking at Chris Stahl out on the turf course right now, preparing for Future Stars Friday, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf, going a mile over the turf here at Santa Anita. and perfect conditions all the way throughout the week, so a turf course expected to be firm. One of the great privileges is getting to meet the people that you talk about. A lot of times we talk about names in the past performances when we're covering international racing, and we never get to know that person. Well, now sitting on the set with us is Roger Varian, who will send out Dyck in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Roger getting in just last night. Thanks for joining us.
No, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Tell us about your background, because you are not coming to Southern California for the first time.
That's right. I spent 2.5 years here as a teenager. Actually finished school, graduated from Agora Hills High School. Seems a long time ago now, but I think in 97, 98, that sort of time. And I spent a little bit of time at Hollywood Park before going back to the UK and sort of settling into my career back home.
And he was at Hollywood Park when I was training, so that's how far back it goes. And you don't come from a racing background, so that's always the question I get. People ask me, how do you get into racing? What was your first introduction to racing? How do you get into it? Specifically because your family's not involved in it.
Yeah, I was a big fan as a kid growing up.
Right.
You know, I used to spend my weekends sat in front of a television set watching horse racing.
Right.
And, you know, so I had a dream and an ambition, you know, as a young kid really to be a jockey. And that's what drove me into the industry. And had a very unsuccessful career as a jump jockey back home. But, you know, I set my sights on training at an early age. I was very fortunate to get in a very big stable in Newmarket back home. Michael Jarvis, yeah. Had 10 years under Michael and then took over from him when he retired. So, no, I've been very fortunate.
And your rise has been, I mean, on a curve, it's been meteoric like that. You've had tremendous success. I mean, you're a classic winning trainer already, having won the St. Ledger. You won the Coronation Cup a couple of times. And you've also moved yards. You've gone Clive's old place, right?
That's right.
Yeah, Carlberg Stables. Of course, Clive Britton was the first person to ever train a Breeders' Cup winner from Europe with Pebbles way back in 1985. How is that? What has happened in the last several years that's made that jump up? Have you picked up some new owners?
Well, we've had great support, you know, from the owners that we set out with, and we've had great new additions to the owners' rostrum. So really, I owe a huge thank you to all of our owners, you know, past and present. But we touched on it earlier. I was assistant trainer with Michael Jarvis. He trained a big string of horses. He trained for some big people back then. And so I took over a flourishing, successful stable. So I was very fortunate to come into the training ranks with quite a number of horses behind me. And, you know, fortunately things have gone well, and we've attracted a few new owners along the way, and we've been here once or twice at a breeders' meet before. We've had placed horses. We haven't had a winner yet, but you know, it's great to be back here.
Well, Dyck gives you a big chance in the Juvenile Fillies turf. Why did you think she was perfect to make the trip over here?
Actually, we've had this race on our radar for some time. Although her last start when she won the Norfolk Stakes was a win in your in race, we had aspirations to come here before she won that race. She's a very straightforward filly. She's got a great mind, very good temperament. Obviously, the ability's in the book. She's never run a bad race. She's a Royal Ascot winner. She's won a Group 3, a Group 2. She's been second her only try at Group 1 level. So, you know, her credentials are there for everyone to see. And, you know, she's very straightforward mentally. So she's always a filly I thought, even as a young animal, as a 2-year-old, would ship very well out here.
What do you think? I think the game has changed tremendously. It's become such a, as we're taking a look back at that, Rockfell, the sport of horse racing has become a global game in the last 10 to 15 years. We've seen it with, you know, what Godolphin are doing with Dubai. How much is your experience? Because when I was back in Newmarket, you know, I was working with Henry, bought Indian Skimming to the Breeders' Cup. It was a thought, but it was also a monumental task to do it. With your experience here in California, I mean, I think it's easier for European horses to adjust now to American racing. Would you agree with that? Because you've got so many people that know about American racing, that have spent time here, that have had work experience. You yourself has done that. How much has that experience being here, even as a young teenager, helped with bringing a horse to the United States?
I think everything you mentioned comes into the mix. I think to start with, you know, the game, the industry has become very, very globalized over the last 10 years. And you see European horses going around the world and having success, whether it's at a Breeders' Cup or whether it's have a Melbourne Spring Carnival in Australia, or whether it's in Dubai, you know. So I think maybe the realization over the last few years how quickly and how well these horses adapt, and maybe, you know, in the past, maybe going back 20 or 25 years, people would have been just afraid at the thought of shipping a horse in an aeroplane all the way to California to compete maybe 6 days after arriving. I think history and results have proven that so much is achievable with horses now that I think people are much more willing to give it a go. And it comes at the end of our sort of long European summer, and obviously if the horses are good enough to deserve the trip, but more importantly seem to be in the good condition still, to take the trip and to run up to their levels, then it's very attractive for everyone involved, the trainer, the owner, obviously, and it's great to put on a horse's CV to run well at a Breeders' Cup.
Having seen a lot of trainers at the event, I haven't seen them with a camera like you have. You have quite a camera that you're walking around. What's that for? Is that to keep the owners up to date of what's going on over here? Or is that for your own personal use?
Well, I'm not the cameraman, but my wife, Hanako, she's with me. She loves her photography, and it's her new toy. She's got a great big camera. She'd rival the guys on the fence,
Yeah.
And no, she's been out this morning. As I say, it was our first morning on the track this morning. Beautiful morning to be out, and Dyck was looking great. So we've some good pictures to send home, and you might even pick them up on our social media outlooks later on today.
She looks phenomenal here. You've got to be pleased with the way she's settling in here and getting over the racetrack.
I couldn't be more pleased with her when I saw her this morning. The team here told me how well she'd shipped. She'd not left a note. She'd dropped very little weight. She'd been drinking and eating so well. She left home with her skin was tight, and she still looked to have that well-being of a summer in her. So everything I was told was confirmed when I saw her this morning. I couldn't be more pleased with her condition. So fingers crossed we have a smooth morning out tomorrow and Thursday morning, and we can get her to the race on Friday.
Well, Roger, the most important picture you'll take is hopefully in the winner's circle after the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Thank you for taking the time to visit with us.
No, thanks so much for having me.
One last thing before I let you go. I was reading on your website last night. If this training thing doesn't work out, I heard you can spin a good pizza. Is that right? Over here in Agoura Hills?
There you go, Round Table Pizza.
That was your first job, wasn't it? Round
That's
Table
right.
Pizza.
There you go.
You're going to make a passionate visit back there, maybe? What's your speciality?
My culinary skills have not advanced since then. So.
Stick to the training.
Yeah. Roger Varian joining us on Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup. We check in now with Gabby Gaudet.
Well, there were just a lot of horses coming in and out of both the paddock and the indoor saddling stalls. And you can see here behind me, Sweet Melania with trainer Todd Pletcher. They just put the saddle on her just a few moments ago and took her for a couple of spins around. She looks like she's handling herself very, very well. Ears pricked forward and cool as a cucumber. As you can see her just taking it all in. Looks like she's definitely taking a lot out of this experience here in the indoor saddling stalls. So she'll probably have a couple more laps around, and then they'll take the saddle off of her and then walk her back to the barn. But it looks like all is well here in the Todd Pletcher camp with Sweet Melania.
And, looking at Todd Pletcher, obviously we always think about him with 2-year-olds, but, 2-year-old turf horses is where he absolutely is making an impact
By
this
the way,
year in Future Stars Friday.
He went to the Tassels yearling sale, Todd Pletcher, for the first time this year, looking for turf horses. That's how much a dramatic shift we've seen here in the United States with the turf runners.
Here's a look at Chris Stahl being prepared for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf on Future Stars Friday. For trainer John Kimmel, daughter of Palace Malice out of the flatter mare Undo, and bred by Glendalough in the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Yeah, she's a filly that she's run pretty much the same race every time she's run. She sits back and comes with a furious late rally. I mean, she really closes quickly the last quarter of the mile. Trip is going to be key for her navigating through a full field, and she will be taking on Dyck, and we just talked to Roger Varian. I got to tell you, I mean, how can you not root for him? What a great guy.
Yeah, look.
I mean, and he has no, in Europe, a lot of the successful trainers have usually had a background in racing.
Okay.
Their parents were great owners.
Well, let's be honest, your society works that way as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons I came here, to get away from it.
Well, I would have been a serf over there.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't have the lineage to be a horse trainer like that. And he comes from a background with no background in horse racing, and interestingly, he was out here in California, but you couldn't root for a nicer young man. He's part of the Dali Flying Start program as well. That's where he met his wife, Anoki, who was the major representative for Dali Japan. So
Well, I wish all our morning was interviews with Roger Varian and, good news. But it's been an up and down morning. We had the disappointing news of Maxfield getting out of the TVG Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Unfortunately, we have another defection to report to you. And once again, Joaquin.
Well, guys, back here at the Doug O'Neill barn, Jay Priblin from the Daily Racing Form reported that Landeskog is going to be scratched from the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Just had an opportunity right now to go in their office and talk to Leandro Mora and Doug O'Neill. They said that Landeskog went to the track today, but when he came back to the barn, they noticed that he was starting to tie up, or he's starting to cramp up. So the reason that they're going to scratch him is they're just going to be safe and err on the side of caution here. They said he's fine. He'll be able to run, and he'll be able to fight another day. But they are going to be scratching Landeskog from the Breeders' Cup Sprint for the Doug O'Neill camp. So a tough day on this Tuesday afternoon, guys. A couple major defections into their respective Breeders' Cup races.
But then the other side of it that we touched on, Simon, the protocols work. For those who wonder about our sport, is it an all or nothing and we shove things aside to make it to the big races? No. We love these horses to their core, to our core, and to those who work around them on a daily basis are willing to pass up opportunities of a lifetime for the health and well-being of our equine athletes. So that is a positive thing that we can display to the rest of the world.
Exactly. I mean, it's going to look, if this wasn't the Breeders' Cup World Championships, stuff like this happens in our sport on a daily basis. You don't get to hear about it. If Landeskog was running on Saturday and it was, he scratched on a Tuesday of the week, a regular race day, you wouldn't hear about it. We're under the microscope here, but there is a full team of veterinarians in place here to ensure the welfare and the safety of the horses. In fact, there's over 20 here on the grounds to do that, and along with the barn veterinarians and the trainers and the help as well. That's why we have these protocols in place to prevent horses from running with a problem.
Getting closer to 2 days of championship racing, the Breeders' Cup, Friday, November 1st and Saturday, November 2nd here at Santa Anita. And on this morning, we got to see Code of Honor out on the racetrack and watching and enjoying from the breakfast marquee pavilion was trainer Shug McGahee. And then the Japanese-based horses were out again on the racetrack once a win. Matoli, wow, what a body. Matoli is built like a champ and has performed that way in the sprint division. And then Michelle Yu was everywhere, including quizzing a lot of people trackside, be it Jonathan Kinchin or Kurt Becker. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Breakfast at the Breeders' Cup, presented by TVG.